brilliant blast of light erupts from a rocky outcrop just outside town, screaming that something massive just unleashed its power. This was the day Kanado finally cracked open his true gift, because the kid who'd been thrown aside as the bottom of the barrel wasn't that person anymore, and his tiny magical crew watched it all unfold in awe. The memory of that moment hits like a punch, sweat drips down his brow as he stares at a brutal realization, and on that day he doesn't just change, he stops being human. Right now he's in the middle of a roaring adventurers guild, posted up against a pillar with a calm, unbothered look, just watching all the chaos unfold around him. The calm in his chest gets shattered when a loud, blonde guy barges in front, grumbling about the line like it's a personal attack. Then, when Kanado calls him out, the guy pretends to be shocked and claims he never even saw him there. The act crumbles in a snap, now it's all sneer. He taunts Arga, that E-rank bottom-feeder tamer, asking what right she has to bark orders at him, a B-rank adventurer. Kanado's face tightens the moment the insult lands. He leans in tight, sneers in contempt, and tells the tamer to stay in his lane, then slams him as a weakling shrimp. To flex his dominance, the bully snatches another adventurer in line, grabs the horned youth by the hair, and yanks him back like he's nothing. Just as he tried to push ahead, a massive hand slammed onto his wrist, thwack. The guild master, Anson Neowagus, stepped in with a calm but unshakable tone, shutting him down hard for trying to cut the line. Ansel chews out the chastened adventurer Nymra, warning her that this kind of stunt could get her demoted. Then he swivels to Kanado, snaps, Arguson, and orders him to report the problem to the staff right away. Even with a heavy sigh, that tiny smirk says he'll drop it for now. He forces a grin, wipes a bead of sweat off his temple, then shrugs it off like it's totally fine since he's got all the free time in the world anyway. Then he whips around to the guild counter, where a bright, smiling receptionist asks what she can do for him. Hinado answers that he's come to announce his departure from Hinado's party, while the guild master Ansa watches him with a sharp, questioning stare. The moment he finally leaves for good, pain hits like a punch, and his mind slams back into everything that brought him here, bitter regret twisting across his face, because deep down he knew this moment was coming. 3 hours ago, and bam, Kanado's memory snaps back. Nemura, all spiky swagger and flanked by 2 girls, sits there like she owns the world and jabs a finger straight at him. Arga, she growls, I'm banishing you. And Kanado just freezes, staring back in total, helpless shock. Stuck in confusion, he blurts out, what do you mean by banishment? Did I mess up? Nymra's hooded companion scoffs right back, saying it's because he's a tamer, like his senses are too dull to even get it. She then blasts out that they don't need a tamer who can only befriend monsters. Kanado, still totally lost, blurts out what's so wrong with being a tamer, and Nymra cuts in with a smug, condescending, fine, I'll explain it to you. Nymra screams that tamers level up way too slow since they have to share EXP with their monsters, and then zeroes in on it. Arga is the only E-rank left in the party. Kanado tries to push back, saying they already talked about this when he joined, and Nymra even nodded it was okay, but nobody listens. Nymra cuts him down anyway, roaring that without his monsters, Kanado is nothing but a pathetic weakling. He blurts out a desperate plea, reminding Nymra they've been side by side for 2 whole years, but Nymra shuts him down cold, snaps that it's true, and sneers at the idea of companions. Then he fires back hard. If you drag the whole party into the dirt, you don't get to call yourself a companion. Instead, he fires off the final insult, your dead weight. Nymra and the 2 women burst into vicious laughter, and Kanado just stands there, shattered. Nymra even rubs it in, now he's got all the free time he could ever want. That brutal memory finally crumbles, yanking him back to reality at the guild counter. The receptionist flips through his adventure card, frowns because it's been stuck for 2 whole years, and offers to file his new registration for him right then. He double-checks with the receptionist that she'll update his status, and Riley smugly notes he's got all the time in the world now that he's been banished, leaving the poor woman totally flustered. She snaps back with a dark, spherical crystal, and he glares at it like it's trouble, asking what it is and why she won't let this go. She beams and tells him it's a brand new status checker, one that reads his info straight from the crystal. Kanado blurts out his shock, and the receptionist tells him the info goes straight onto his adventure card, no detours. Then Guildmaster Ansa hears it and snaps that the old paper application system was a mess because people would lie through their teeth about their details. The receptionist snaps the scanner to life and starts calling out the info straight from the crystal's screen. Argo Abilian, age 18 human, rank EG. She keeps insisting he's a tamer, until boom, a second title slams into the spotlight, Fusionist. He snaps his finger at the device and blares that it's broken, and the receptionist jerks her gaze up from her work, totally thrown by his sudden outburst. Anza steps up, eyes locked in, intrigued. He says he's never even heard of a fusionist, but he swears the crystal's reading is dead on, and the device straight up spells out techniques like tame, companion art, mix, and fusion art. The guild master's eyes pop wide as the meaning finally clicks. Then he blurted out, "Second job, a whole new occupation," and Kanado can only repeat it, his brain scrambling to take it in. He explains that most people juggle just one job, but a tiny few carry two. This rare twist is what they call a second job, and the moment it clicks, Kanado goes completely silent, stunned to realize he's got two occupations, and he clenches his fists and blurts out that this new development is perfect for switching jobs, until the guild master slams the moment shut and reminds him it's not something to take lightly. His excitement crumbles, and wide-eyed shock slams in as he realizes just how insane this is. A second job only shows up once in 1,000 years. The shock hits for a split second, then joy crashes back in hard. He stares at what he's uncovered and instantly realizes how huge it is, thinking he might be a once-in-1,000 years prodigy, a talent no one else has. And just like that, his luck flips completely around. His mind snaps to the real question: what is a fusionist even supposed to do in his new job? He asks the receptionist, and she leans in like, "Wait, what?" Trouble is, the guild master just shakes his head. He's never heard the term either, and the confusion hits his face hard. When the guild master gives him zero answers, he blurts out his own guesses, thinking that from the name alone, it sounds like a job where you can crossbreed monsters. The moment his theory lands, his spark dies, like someone just popped his hype balloon. He grimaces and realizes crossbreeding isn't some legendary miracle at all. Any tamer could do it, and he feels stupid for betting big on a once-in-1,000 years breakthrough. The guild master just stares, frozen in shocked silence, then blurts out a stammering reply, because yeah, anyone could do it. He whips back to the guild master, sweat dripping down his face, and blurts out, uncertain now, whether he really can pull it off, and the question just hangs there in the air outside the guild hall. He slips out of the guild and hunts down a quiet patch of field, then plops down with his new power and stares at a blank card-like object, ready to see what it can do. He grips the card tight, eyes blazing with resolve, then barks a command straight into the empty air. "All right then, come out, you guys." When he called out, three long, dark, shadow things tore up out of the ground right in front of him, their faces blurred, but their monster vibes screaming in every shape. The shadowy shapes snap into place, and just like that, they don't become monsters at all. They solidify into three tiny, familiar creatures: a baby dragon, a wolf pup, and a slime. With a smug grin, he checked his companions and announced they'd be the perfect foundation for his very first fusion experiment. Then, on his signal, a status screen burst into existence, and the slime eagerly leaned in to inspect it. The screen flashed everyone's stats: baby dragon level 10, attack 3, defense 1, baby wolf level 10, attack 2, and the slum level 15, attack 11. Yet the moment he saw it, he knew their numbers were painfully low. Even with his power fading, he shoved forward with his plan, flipping through a chart of possible combos like it was a lifeline. Then he chose to start with the baby dragon Lala and picked a bat as the fusion material. That bold confidence didn't come from thin air. It sparked after a wild, confusing chat. Guild Master Ansa looked genuinely stunned and insisted a tamer's power only lets them command monsters, but Kanado immediately remembered how effortless fusions had always felt for him. Ansa was adamant. She cut it off right there, saying tamers could never crossbreed monsters to forge brand new species, and the baffled guild receptionist even pressed Kanado on how he somehow thought that was a normal skill. Under her questioning glare, nervous sweat poured down his brow as he scrambled to find the right words. He finally confessed the whole truth. He'd taught himself from scratch, never once set foot in a proper school, and he'd never even laid eyes on another tamer. The moment he confessed, the whole room felt heavier, like his loneliness had been dragged into the light. With a sad look, the receptionist clocked that he had no friends, and Ansa remembered the extra gut punch too. Kanado had been banished as well. He yanked that humiliating memory out of his head and snapped it down with a hard no, then fired himself back up, time to get back on track and push the fusion forward. He lets out a heavy sigh and finally accepts he's a fusionist. If he's doing this, then mixed fusion art is way more impressive, and as he studies the offer in front of him, he weighs the chance to fuse the baby dragon with a bat. No hesitation, his finger slams yes, and the mixed fusion art kicks off instantly. The command hits the moment it's spoken, boom. A blazing flash snaps around Kanado as the bat and the baby dragon get yanked together, spinning into a roaring swirl of energy. As the light fades, the new monster finally steps into view. Kanado stares, shocked as the dragon's wings shift in shape and color, now looking eerily like a bat-s. Then the little creature lets out a curious growl, like it's sizing him up. He shoots a quick check on the creature's status. Its total stats are down, its racial skills are unchanged, and then bam, a brand new ability just got added, the bat's ultrasonic wave. The worry melts away and a huge triumphant grin bursts onto his face, because even with the lower base stats, that new skill is the real game changer, and the creature is stronger all things considered. Eyes blazing with fresh purpose, he hoists the modified dragon high in the air and declares, thrilled and loud, that as the fusionist, he'll forge it even stronger. Kanado glances at all three, his baby wolf, his slime, and the moment unfolding before them, then tells them, straight up, that they're lucky. His voice flips from triumphant to heavy, and he tells them, fusion can make us stronger and stronger, yet a deep ache crawls through him, because even after being hailed as a once-in-a-thousand-years talent, he can't shake the feeling that he's still weak. That thought doesn't drag him into despair, no, it ignites him. He clenches his fist with steel resolve, silently promising it to himself, he's going to get strong too, just like them. Rage boiled in his chest as he replayed the adventurers who'd mocked him, sweat sliding down his temple while their sneering faces haunted his mind, until his resolve turned to iron, and he swore he'd show them his. His brooding got yanked to a halt when a tiny dragon lifted its head from the grassy plain just outside the town and stared right at him. Suddenly a wild thought lit up his brain like a spark, fusion. He started thinking if humans and monsters were basically the same in magic and biology, then maybe they could be fused too, and that terrifying electric question hit him hard. Should he fuse himself with a monster? He stared at the brutal odds, one slip and he'd be warped into a grotesque chimera or even die on the spot. Yet the payoff burned just as bright because a prompt flared in front of him, promising a fusion with a lesser arachne, and if he pulled it off, he'd finally become strong. The idea of wielding monster power was just too tempting. He'd become genuinely strong, the kind that won't break, with pure, unwavering resolve, so he chose yes and fired off his mixed fusion art. In a split second, a blinding pillar of light detonated from his body, blasting the energy straight through the air and knocking his tiny companions tumbling backward across the field. As the light died down, he stumbled there, gasping, soaked in sweat, but still standing unbroken. Relief slammed into him so hard he could only think, I'm alive. He tore through his own body with a quick check, everything was normal, and he'd done it. The second he tried to celebrate, though, a wild, impossible thing hit him, a status window, an interface meant for monsters only. The moment he fully realized what this anomaly meant, his whole body went still, eyes bulging with pure shock and total confusion. A strained, disbelieving laugh burst out of him, because the truth on that screen wouldn't budge. His race had changed, he was now a demon human, and that horrifying upgrade was exactly why his status screen had finally kicked on. Staring at his own hands, one brutal thought hit like thunder. His last desperate gamble didn't just fail, it turned him into something that wasn't human anymore. Inside the Roaring Adventurers Guild, Kanado snatches a mission off the public board, bolts for the exit with the paper clenched in his fist, and can't help thinking, are there really this many killer quests stacked up right here? He slams the paper onto the reception counter with a thud, eyes locked in, and declares, I'm taking this job. The receptionist checks the details, an extermination job on the northern plains, and tells him it's nothing fancy, just low pay and easy work, but he waves her off, grinning that he's only there to test his strength, and her face flickers with confused doubt. Staring up at him, she finally spots it for the first time and blurts that Arguson was he always this tall. Then his face flickers with shock as he scratches the back of his head. He cryptically tells her he's basically been reborn and warns that these body changes are only the opening act, while the receptionist just freezes there, staring in total bafflement like she has no idea what she's hearing. He slashes the conversation short, spins on his heel, and waves like he's on a mission, saying he's heading out, while the receptionist blurts his name and Ansa, the guild master, watches from nearby. As Arguson slips through the doorway, the receptionist whips around to Ansa, worry creasing her face, and blurts that something about Arguson feels seriously off. Ansa clocks Arga's weird behavior and figures he's just chasing a fresh start. Then the memory hits. Arga swore he'd been reborn, and Ansa remembers how fast he jumped on that cheap work like it was the deal of the century. Running a hand over his beard, he leans in and wonders why Arga, of all people, an experienced adventurer, would risk his reputation on a basic goblin extermination out in the northern plains. The receptionist's worry only grows. She can't stop worrying that Argo might not be okay, and that dread hangs in the air as the scene cuts. Then boom, the northern plains hit as terrifyingly dangerous. Out among the jagged rocks, Kanado shows up and locks onto his targets. Hey, there they are, he watches from the shadows, eyeing a group of goblins. He whips around to his companions, smirking like he owns the night, and declares they're the perfect match to try out his brand new strength after their fusions. Then he laughs that he's going to see what he can do himself right after. While he weighs his new changes, he realizes just how terrifying it feels to become a demonic human. His life force and magic power have multiplied 4 times over, and his attack power skyrockets from a measly 5 to a jaw-dropping 81. His mind keeps racing through every new power he just got, fusing with that spider monster even lets him spit out deadly spider silk, but the one ability that hooks him the hardest is the last one, Evolver. He stares at his own hand, realizing this new power isn't just cool, it's a game changer. It doubles every experience he earns while he's leveling up, and the moment it clicks, he knows his growth is about to skyrocket fast enough to be downright scary. His reflection snaps away just as, in the distance, a goblin whips its head around, like they've been spotted with. He doesn't hesitate, he thrusts his hand forward and barks at Lala, his tiny dragon, to blast an ultrasonic wave. His sonic blast tore through the goblin's ranks, freezing them where they stood, and a grin flashed across his face. This bat fusion skill was worth every second, so he yelled for all his companions to charge forward. His monsters crash into the fight, and right away, Lily's slime lunges in with a fresh cobalt fusion bite skill, while Lily the wolf barrels forward using a boar fusion charge. He stands there grinning with pride, watching them grow stronger, and then he steels himself. No way he's letting himself fall behind. He drops into the goblin assault and carves it clean in two with his blade, but the moment the deed is done, his face snaps into pure, stunned shock. The bisected goblin doesn't collapse, both have surge up on their own, and their mouths split open in a silent, gut-chilling scream. He stands amid the twitching wreckage of the bisected goblins, his blade still singing from that final, effortless slash. That effortless win leaves him frozen, staring like, how did I cut them in half with just a simple knife? He snaps into a disbelief laugh, remembering how weak he used to be. His shock spikes as a flood of notifications crashes into his vision, and he can't believe he's leveling up this fast just for wiping out goblins with an experience-boosting skill. Then it hits him. The real EXP must have come from the monsters his companions already crushed. A grin explodes across his face as he confirms everyone's stats have skyrocketed, and then he leans in like, mine's even more insane. He checks his own status, and that smug smile snaps into wide-eyed shock, because his attack hits 241 and his agility rockets to 301, numbers that rival A-rank quests, maybe even S-rank, and suddenly the thought slams in. Maybe he really could become the strongest. But his triumphant grin gets ripped away when a thunderous roar crashes across the plains, and he snaps around, totally startled. Right in front of him, a colossal, fur-thick monster towers, immense, terrifying, and unstoppable, while blade-like wings spread wide and its shadow chokes the sky. He just freezes, staring like his brain won't move, and one stunned word tumbles out of his mouth. Meanwhile, at the Adventurers Guild, the receptionist snaps her gaze up, eyes full of worry, and demands confirmation about a sword bear sighting in the northern plains. Guildmaster Ansa strokes his beard, eyes narrowing as he confirms the sightings have been happening back to back. Then the receptionist warns that the sword bearer is a terrifying C-rank monster, and Ansa nods like, yup, it's absolutely C. At the Adventurers Guild, the receptionist freezes in shock. She blurts out the nightmare. This sword-bearer's fur is razor-sharp, its claws cut like blades, and its attacks earn an A-rank rating. Then her voice cracks in panic, because Arga's just an E-rank adventurer. Right there, staring the beast in the face, Kanado fires through his options, then realizes his demon-human evolution has fully maxed out his companion art, and he might actually be able to tame it. But before hope can even settle, he throws survival to the front and snaps at his companions to fall back. With a fresh surge of resolve hardening his face, he vows he'll crush this one, right now. Then the sword bear rips loose a deafening roar, and Kanado explodes forward, knife raised, aiming at the red. He rockets at the monster, blazing with the idea that an A-rank fight could level him up in one shot. Then his blade clangs into the creature's arm, and he realizes that hide is nearly unbreakable. The beast roars like it's nothing. Kanado realizes his knife is useless, and that punching that jagged, sharp fur would be straight-up suicide. Before he even fully clocks how fast it moves, a massive clawed arm swings down. Right as disaster was about to hit, he dodges, then bursts with pure gratitude for having the spider skill, firing off a silken thread to swing away from the beast and slam in a little breathing room. He touches down safely, eyes sharpening with razor focus, and a fresh plan ignites, so he switches tactics on the spot. He whips up the spider's silk again, and this time it crawls over his own hands, wrapping those strong, thin threads tight around his fingers. With the silk cinched tight into crude gauntlets, a cocky smirk flashes on his face as he gears up for his next strike. He bellows the name of his cobbled-together weapon, plants his feet, and charges back at that giant monster, spider silk gloves. With a defiant roar, he surges forward, silk-wrapped fist snapping back and then blasting out, until the monster's chest takes a brutal, no-mercy punch, and he declares he's done fearing that sword-bearer's fur armor. The hit lands with a thunderous crack, and the colossal beast reels backward, its entire body shaking like it just took a punch from the gods. Kanado's fist drove through the monster's tough hide, crushing the fight out of it as the creature staggered, and a burst of dark fluid sprayed through the air. Its massive claw thrashed in panic, then finally went still as its life drained away. After crushing the beast, Kanado crumples to his knees, gulping air like it's fire, staring at the dead creature as the truth hits. He just took down a C-ranked monster, and as pride surges through him, he whispers, "I won." His victory is sealed, and then he tilts his face to the sky, resolve hardening like steel, vowing to forge himself stronger, because that old promise comes roaring back. He'll become powerful enough to make Kanado and everyone else who crossed him regret it. At the local Adventurers Guild, a towering, intimidating stone fortress is already humming as the day's missions kick off. Inside, Kanado tells the receptionist to wrap up his request fast, then he swings his gaze away and heads for the door, confidence set in his bones, because she insists he stay safe. Right as he starts to rush, a giant hand suddenly slams into his path, yanking him to a halt and shocking the life out of him. Ansa, the guild master, takes his hand and asks, calm as ever, if he's in a rush, then warns him not to run inside the guild. Kanado gets caught off guard and blurts a quick, sheepish apology. Gentle words cut through the air and Ansa's face snaps into sharp focus as he studies Kanado, then he says he's gotten stronger. Kanado shrugs it off like it's nothing, while the receptionist watches, eyes wide with curiosity. He's not just chatting, Ansa clocks the kid in an instant, because that build, those sharp eyes, and that lightning-fast agility feel like they don't belong to one person, but to someone else entirely. As Kanado heads out, the receptionist starts guessing he's reached some high level now, but Ansa can't pin it down. He admits he can't say for sure just by looking. Curiosity hit max speed. He spun back to the receptionist and demanded to know if Kanado is taking requests again today. She tells him she's got him covered, he's checking the logbook, and then she spills the real reason. Kanado always grabs the most pathetic, low-effort jobs, like wiping out 3 horned rabbits, and he'll even run that same task again and again in the very same day. So she smiles and declares it's all in the guild master's head. No one can blow up that fast just by doing jobs that simple. Guildmaster Ansa sat there in stunned silence as the young adventurer scanned the quest board. Kanado's gaze snapped to a request for horned rabbits. He couldn't help thinking they might be perfect for fusion, so he decided to capture and tame one. Just as he spun to go, clutching the quest slip, Ansa's booming voice crashed in from behind, demanding he waste. He skidded to a halt, spun around to face the guild master and the receptionist, and shot them a question, "Do you need anything?" Before Kanado could even answer, 2 hulking adventurers surged into his way, muscles flexed and glares burning hot as they blocked his path. The Mohawk swaggered up and said, "I'm Norsher, this is Razzle," then stared Kanado down and confirmed, "I'm Arga, the E-rank tamer you banished on orders from Kanado Sam." Their voices shot up with raw excitement as they crowned the Kanado who hit S-rank at just 18 as their idol, then practically begged that countless adventurers, including them, were desperate to get into his party. Weariness hit Kanado's face as realization finally landed. He muttered to himself that some weakling like him had somehow been let into that party for 2 whole years. He flicked them off with a dismissive wave, telling them to drop it if it was just jealousy, because that wasn't his problem anymore. That laid-back attitude only lit a fuse in the pair, and they snapped back that his attitude was exactly the issue, leaving Kanado staring in stunned confusion. Razzle's rage burst like thunder. He snapped that Argo should stop grinning like everything's fine, and asked why he was causing trouble for their idol. Then Norsher chimed in telling him to know his place. Razzle shot back that Argo should be thinking things through and apologizing, and Kanado just stared him down in silence, like he was trying to figure out what they even meant. He stares him down, face tightening as he flat-out rejects the demand. Why should he be the one to reflect? He blasts the other Kanado as trash, saying they used him on a whim and never once cared. Then Razzle explodes back, roaring bastard, and yelling if he's calling them idiots for worshipping trash, while Norsher snaps that Arga is the one who should be reflecting. Their fury spills over. Boom. The two 2B adventurers yank their weapons free. Norsher raises his massive club and roars that he'll crush the E-rank brat and teach him respect, while Razzle snaps back, accusing him of looking down on him. He answers their aggression by sliding out a curved blade of his own, calmly demanding why they brought weapons into the guild, and right beside him, the receptionist starts to panic, yelling at her master Ansa that they have to step in. The guild master stays razor calm, tells the worried receptionist to hold tight, and nods them to watch a little longer, because he's dying to find out just how strong Arda has become. As Ansa watches, Norsher and Razzle slam their weapons down in one brutal, synchronized strike. Then Ken Otto, face unreadable, lifts his gloved hand and catches both blades like it's nothing. He effortlessly shuts down their assault, twists around, and steers their momentum off course. Then in one smooth motion, he smacks both of them, blasting them into a spin. Two men slammed into the floor, one clutching his stomach, the other wiping out straight on his face, both groaning through pure pain while Ansa and the receptionist stared, the receptionist still reeling in shock. He towered over the beaten opponents and snapped at Wakanda's sentient presence, asking if they were seriously this stupid, because bringing weapons into the guild breaks the rules. His words hit like a hammer. Razzle and grit their teeth in humiliation, because getting lectured after getting so easily wiped out by an E-ranked tamer is just plain embarrassing. Even after losing, rage still burns in their chests. They spit curses at their own weakness and howl about his strength. Kanado just stands there, stone calm, ignoring their useless fury like it's nothing. He shrugs off Norsher and Razzle's renewed attack with ease. Despite their giant frames, their punches land weak and pathetic, and he blocks them effortlessly, while a bitter grimace twists across one of their faces. Something feels seriously off to him, so off that his gut tightens. Burank adventures can't possibly drag this slow, especially after they nearly toppled earlier. Now he's thinking they're playing him, baiting his guard so he'll drop it. His eyes narrowed with suspicion and steel, and even though he didn't know their game, he snapped into action and chose a whole new plan. With a blur of motion, he whips around and hammers the edge of his hand into Norshi's neck, straight through with jaw-dropping force. He chose to play along with their fake weakness, baiting an opening by acting totally lost. Then the brutal hit lands, and Norsher gets launched across the guild floor in total helpless tumble. With his opponent crumpled and still, Ken Otto stays crouched, eyes razor-focused, and scans for the next strike, questioning if this is a trap and daring them to show where the real attack is coming from. Just as the standoff starts to tighten, a massive hand shoots up, slam, everything stops. Ansa, the guild master, steps right between them and snaps, calling Kanado Arguson, telling him to stop right now. Even with his nerves screaming, Kanado pushes back, begging Ansa to move aside because he's convinced the others are still plotting something. Ansa calmly shoots back, saying the battle's done, and points at the fallen adventurer, making it clear they're both already out of the fight, While the guild receptionist tends to the unconscious Norsher, she leans in and explains everything to a stunned Kanado, making it crystal clear that Buranks aren't weak at all. She reveals that his own senses just haven't caught up to his real, massive, far stronger power, and the truth smashes him into stunned silence. He leans in as Guildmaster Ansa lays it out. Everyone else gets what's happening, and Kanado's gotten so strong he can smash straight through your ranks. Ansa spells it out. The tamer shut up both braggarts and never even needed his monsters, and his speed wasn't E-rank at all. Then he drops the bomb. Razzle and Norsher are B-ranks, teetering right on the edge of becoming A-ranks with the danger hanging in the air. Anso clamps a hand on Kanado's shoulder and demands he show restraint from now on. Shaken to his core, Kanato can barely squeeze out a weak agreement. The word restraint keeps pounding in his head as the shock hits. He's gotten so strong he has to choose to hold back mid-fight. It rattles him hard while he turns away, mind spinning in deep thought. As he leaves, Ansel peers through the window, watching him stride off, a thoughtful look etched on his face. The guild receptionist strides up to Ansa, praising how insanely strong Arguson has gotten, but she can't shake the worry of why it happened so suddenly, and Ansa just admits he has no idea. A fresh voice cuts in, insisting his second job is probably tied to something, and a woman with long, light-colored hair says she doesn't have the facts yet, but she's going to dig until she does. The receptionist snapped her gaze to the woman and asked if she meant the person they'd just been talking about, then pushed the point, confirming she'd really heard second job. Before she can even speak, the guild hall turns its eyes on her, one by one. The compliments die fast, replaced by shock, until the receptionist spots her and lets out a gasp. It's Sissel. Turns out that woman is Sissel Luce Sergil, humanity's deadliest beast of an SSS rank adventurer. She's just sitting there at the table, calm as can be, wearing a small smile like she already knows exactly how this ends. With laser focus, she stared back with wide, curious eyes, then hit the guildmaster with a direct request. Please tell me about the man from back then. Deep inside a cavern, a hideous, many-legged centipede monster explodes out of a crack in the rock wall, its countless limbs wildly scrambling for grip. The creature shows up out of nowhere, and the young tamer bolts for cover, then whips his head back, terror wrecking his face, sweat pouring as the beast crowds the narrow passage. She scrambles up to a higher ledge and steals a breath, while he turns back to the blocked path and realizes, grim as stone, that the route is gone and the danger has gone with it. Fear curdles into raging fury. He grips his cloak and spits a curse at Kanado, blaming him for everything that's gone wrong. But just as his thoughts spiral, he hears the name drop somewhere nearby, and he snaps his head around in shock. When the cavern's shadows finally peel back, Sissel draped in loose surgical gear, stands there perfectly calm, staring him down. She meets him with a soft smile, totally calm while everything else rages around them. Then the surprised tamer blurts, "Why are you alone out here?" Sissel answers without a beat. She's hunting for Kanado's party because she's got to ask them something important. Sissel says she can tell everyone already bolted, then turns to the tamer and asks where they might have gone deeper into the dungeon, but he just shuts down, his face locked in pure resentment. His silence screams with the sting of his old party. Nemaraz's cruel words still ricochet in his head, calling him a useless tamer, then firing him and abandoning him to the dust. She drags him back to the now, then shifts gears. Sissel fires off a new question. Has he heard anything from Kanado about the former Arlequin? The tamer's face tightened with that seen it all before kind of tired, and he admits he'd heard non-stop rumors about Arga, because people kept comparing him to that guy. He even remembers the furious shouting. That Arga would have known the monster's name, even when he didn't. Sissel leans in, eyes sharp, and says everyone swears Arga's monster knowledge is better than hers. In that dim dungeon, Sissel leaned in, eyes blazing with curiosity, grilling the abandoned tamer for answers. Had he ever heard what the legendary Argus can do exactly? He made it crystal clear, those rumors about Arga's one-of-a-kind talent for crossbreeding monsters were true. The sting of his dismissal hit like lightning. Nemaris had yelled that they'd hired a joke of a tamer, even worse than Arga, and the tamer remembered his furious claim. Arga's power wasn't a tamer's job at all, but a whole different skill. He told Sissel that his old party had watched Argo pull off crazy feats again and again, so they started treating his impossible power like it was just the normal baseline for every tamer. Leaning in with raw excitement, Sissel practically demanded he spill every last detail about it. Meanwhile, in a barren rocky wasteland, Kanado stood there, jaw set and eyes narrowed, completely swallowed by thought. He stared at his brand-new dragon form, still shocked by how it suddenly erupted in glowing light the moment he leveled up, like the game just flipped a switch. He clocked the creature's fresh shape. Lala had evolved into a tiny chimera dragon, and even after the upgrade, those mismatched limbs still made its look downright grotesque. Guilt slammed into him as he finally took full blame, realizing his careless, repeated fusions with low-compatibility monsters had brutally derailed Lala's evolution. He had to admit the stats weren't terrible, but the outcome still crushed him because it felt like all that effort went nowhere. Right then, his instincts screamed and he snapped his head up at something nearby, so he called out for Kidra, another one of his creatures. He chases the signal he sensed, slipping up to a massive circular pit carved into the earth, where stone steps spiraled down into a dark doorway below, straight into the labyrinth. Diving down into the pit, he stood shoulder to shoulder with his monstrous crew, Kidra, Lily, and Lily, right in front of the stone entryway, ready to charge straight into the dark. He sizes up the route ahead with total calm and tells everyone out loud, "This is a beginner-friendly labyrinth." Then he grins and swears their current strength will steamroll it, no trouble at all. His real mission burns bright in his mind. Lala's evolution can't go off track. He's sure the labyrinth is stuffed with the fusion materials they need, so he pats Kidra, barks the order, and the whole party surges forward, charging ahead. As soon as they step inside, pure hostility hits. An ugly reptilian humanoid brandishes a crude blade and lunges at Kidra, while insectoid monsters skitter all around, closing in fast. The sudden assault hits like a thunderclap, and Kanado immediately drops low, his face set in stone as he yanks out his own weapon, ready to slam into the attack head-on. He doesn't zero in on the lizard man's threat, he sprints right past it, yelling for his crew to break formation and let the small fry scatter. He's already locked onto the real target, a metal stag beetle. If he wants to force Lola's evolution, he needs both beetle-type and steel-type elements, and this creature just happens to carry both. He spots his target and pounces right away. There it is, he blurts out, thrusting his hand forward as it starts to glow, using his taming skill on the beetle. His move gets slammed with resistance. The beetle thrashes and wriggles free, shrugging off the skill like it's nothing, and his second try goes nowhere too, while the glow in his hand fades out as the creature stays completely untainted. Each failure slams into him like a brick. He clenches his teeth and snaps that it failed again, then the rule hits him hard. A tamer gets only 3 tries to tame a single monster. After his taming attempt failed, he snapped and went for pure force. Then with one decisive slash, his blade cut clean through the metal stag beetle's brutal carapace. The instant the kill hit, power thundered through his veins, leveling him up 6 times in one breath. His resolve snapped into steel. If he couldn't tame the next monster, he'd just harvest its massive experience and shove even deeper into the labyrinth. Meanwhile, in some other corner of the cavern, Sissel couldn't stop thinking about Arga, the tamer who fused monsters and even swapped their colors. So she wondered out loud if that power got boosted too, and she straight up realized Arga and his creations could become insanely strong. Her busted-down tamer buddy demanded, "Why do you think that?" And before she could answer, he started talking, saying he'd heard rumors about Arga too. Sissel nodded to herself, then confirmed the exact rumor she'd heard, that Arga was somehow fusing a baby dragon. Then the earth buckled and exploded. Up shot a monstrous, multi-eyed centipede with a bone-chilling shriek, and the abandoned tamer screamed in pure terror. A terrifying creature loomed over them, but Sissel didn't flinch. She stayed ice calm. The terrified tamer blurted out his thanks, relieved he could finally confirm things the right way. Sissel just smirked and said, "You're lucky, that's all." She turned to him with a soft smile and said he was lucky, too. Then she showed him how to finally sever ties with the nasty people who ditched him and still make it back up to the surface safe. In the blink of an eye, her blade screamed through the air, and the colossal centipede that looked unstoppable a second ago got split clean in two. She slid her weapon back into its sheath and offered to walk him out. Right then, the tamer froze when he saw that jet-black blade, and a sickening horror hit as recognition slammed into him. He stammered that it couldn't be true, because she was the legendary SSS-rank adventurer. After the labyrinth shakedown, Sissel rushes to Guild Master Ansa and spills everything, then drops the name Arga, a weird combo of a tamer and a fusionist, and you can practically see Ansa's curiosity ignite. The guild receptionist calls out that Sissel's been chatting with Arga way too often, but Sissel snaps it off, then clamps down on the whole mess and asks straight up whether she even knows what Arga can really do. Sissel admits she only kept tabs on him because something felt off, especially once she found out he'd turned into a high-difficulty tamer all on his own through self-study. Then he throws out a rumor he just heard: Arga has a baby dragon as a companion. Ansa breaks it down fast, saying dragon kinds are basically impossible to tame. They can read a person's true skill and will only bow to a master they decide is strong enough. The guild master weighs every consequence in his head, because if Arga really tamed a dragon, that's solid proof of his insane skill. Sissel hasn't verified it herself, but the wild combo of fusion art and a baby dragon has her hooked. Without hesitation, Ansa slams a report onto his desk and declares, "I'm going to confirm this myself." A satisfied smile bursts across her face. She finally got the answer she needed. With fresh fire in her chest, Sissel sets her own plan in motion and goes hunting for Argus's old companions, ready to hear their side of the story. Her gaze snaps straight to Kanado, and he freezes with a startled flinch as she blurts his name. Then her face lights up with pure hope, and she tells him straight to his face, "You might just be the one to fulfill my dream." Deep in a stone maze, Kanado and his familiars crash into a brutal horned ogre. Then it bellow roars and thrashes as Kanado and his tiny crew shove their attack forward in the cramped corridor. The coordinated assault keeps rolling as one of his bird-like familiars rams its beak into the ogre's face, making that lumbering brute reel back in raw pain. As the beast stumbles, Kanado stays cool, clocking the moment the ogre has turned weak, and he knows the time to tame it is coming fast. He can't help but grin. His crew's power has skyrocketed, and even a labyrinth boss like a D-rank ogre doesn't stand a chance anymore. Even as its power crumbles, the ogre digs into its last shred of strength and rips out one final, desperate roar, defiant to the very end. It surges ahead and whips a massive fist straight at Kanado's face, desperate as it can be. The crushing punch lands dead center, but Kanado doesn't so much as blink. He just stands there, perfectly still, wearing calm-like armor. He grins, smug as hell, because D-rank monsters can't even land a scratch anymore. Then he snatches the ogre and hurls it over his shoulder with zero effort, crashing it into the ground. While the beast spasms and finally lies defeated, Kanado slaps a hand on its head and unleashes his taming power. Instead of getting tamed, the ogre's body shatters into glowing particles. Then a treasure chest drops where it stood, and Kanado freezes in shock, realizing it's a boss draw. He freezes, staring at the treasure chest like it's unreal, then rips it open, eyes blazing with eager anticipation as he can't stop himself from wondering what's hiding inside. He strolls down the city streets, grinning like he won the lottery, humming to himself with pure joy in his chest because he can't believe how lucky he's been. They crack open the chest and boom, inside is the ogre's rare drop, a horn of battle, and get this, there are two of them. He starts crunching the odds in his head. One rare drop is 1 in 10,000, but 2 drops, that's 1 in 100,000, and when it hits him that this means he beat a staggering 1 in 100 million, he erupts in pure, triumphant roar. Weaving through the crowd, he's already plotting his next move, because that horn could fetch a fortune, enough to coast for 3 whole years without work, so he decides to stash one and sell the other, until a voice rips through the chaos and calls his old name Arga. He snaps his head around, eyes sharpening the moment he spots Nimruz in the party. Nimruz glares down, sizing up what happened to his body, and with a flare of annoyance he cuts in fast. "My name's Kanado." He freezes for a second, replaying everything in his head. Back then, he had to tilt his chin just to look at Kanado, the guy he thought he knew. Now he's standing taller and he can't shake the thought. Did becoming a demon human trigger some crazy growth, and did it come with a level up too? Just as he starts sinking into his thoughts, the women from Nemmer's party crash in, pigtails in the lead, mocking, "Did you end up on weird drugs?" While the hooded one snarls that it has to be because he was so ashamed of being short. Nymra cuts off their chatter, locks his eyes on what Kanado's holding, and points like, "No way, that's an ogre's rare drop," rage and disbelief mixing as he insists it can't be true. Kanado snaps back, short and certain, "Yep." The women ramp up their taunts, those in hoods sneer that he probably got it as charity, just leeching off some other crowd, and the girl with pigtails snaps that he probably stole it, sending Kanado blustering with pure exasperation. He swears he got the item by using his monsters, but the crowd keeps laughing at him like, "Dude, you don't have to flex over some measly Dirink drawing." Nimerus shows off a ring like it's a trophy, shouting that it's a Birank rear draw just to prove he's on top. Then he snaps his head to Kanado and demands, "You jealous?" Nemmer just smirks and calls Kanado's find a ghost prince drop, trashing it like, sure, maybe he knows a thing or two, but everything else about it is garbage. With a smirk on his face, Nimrus tells Kanado, "If you were here with us, I'd get you these priceless goodies." Then he smugly says Kanado can jump back into their party, if he really wants. A bead of sweat slid down his face as he weighed the offer, and tired understanding flickered to life in his eyes. Then it hits him they're begging for him back, and you can tell they're stuck trying to conquer a labyrinth, clueless because they don't know monsters at all. They're even cheering over a useless ring, blind to the fact that top-tier rare drops aren't always the best, and he basically lands on one brutal truth. They've got duds on their hands, no clue beyond the basics. A small, cynical laugh slips out of him as he thinks, "So they finally got it, now they're back for me," and then he blurts, "Who would even sign up after this?" The hooded woman snaps back, furious, accusing him of spitting in their face while they try to be kind. What? His patience snaps, he whips around and roars at them to shut up, and bam. His three tamed monsters, the slime, the wolf, and the dragon, burst into existence around him, shocking his old companions out of their minds. The trio jerks back in disgust. Pigtail's woman snarls that the dragon is a gross chimera freak, while Nymra points and hisses at the hairy wolf, and the hooded woman just stares, calling the slime the most normal one, even though it somehow still looks nothing like before. His face contorted into a savage snarl. Kanado snarled that I needed to get rid of those final command issues and shut them down on my site right now. He turns his back on them and clicks his tongue in pure annoyance, because running into his old party is just bad luck. Behind him, the pigtail woman yells that he's barbaric for using violence, while the others glare with sharp, burning irritation. As he turns away, steel settles in his bones. 3 years of living carefree is done. He's done being overlooked, and he vows to grow so powerful that nobody will ever be able to look down on him again. While Nimmers watches Arga march off, his face twists sour, and the hooded woman next to him spits out her anger. "Arga's irritating," she says, and she'd still wanted to recruit him again. She blurts out, "So what do we do now?" and admits the ugly truth. Conquering that labyrinth will be brutal without a monster expert, someone like a tamer. Soon after, Kanado marches up to an old goblin shopkeeper and demands to buy something. His knife has gone dull from countless runs through the labyrinth, so he needs to trade it in for cash to grab a brand new weapon. He drops one gleaming gold coin onto the wooden counter with a sharp, satisfying clink. A huge smile lights up his face as he realizes he got lucky today, and the shopkeeper shoots back the same grin, sharp, sly, and totally in on it. Right then, the shopkeeper's coin crumbles into dust in his own hand, and the old man yelps in pure shock and brutal pain. The shopkeeper explodes with rage, snapping at Kanado that he's a scammer and demanding to know what he pulled. Kanado's face tightens as he hits back that the coin isn't fake, it's a legit drop from an ogre. Then he drops an ultimatum. As an apology, the shopkeeper will pay 2,000 gold coins for the fake and toss in the most expensive knife in the shop, so the boy better not mess with him. As the tension spikes, 4 intimidating men slither in behind the counter, staring Kanado down with pure menace, and he locks eyes with them, not flinching once. Kanado stared down the charging thug, stone cold and totally unimpressed. Then the brute came in swinging a knife, and he realized with a bitter jolt he'd walked into a far worse place than he ever expected, one the world didn't deserve. He darted sideways with effortless speed, and the thug's attack missed, sending him flying head over heels past him. He snapped his grin at the leftover thugs and said they were doomed to cross him while his nerves were razor tight, then stopped mid-breath, flipped the thought, and realized maybe it was Asterisk who was the bad luck charm. The other enforcers stared in disbelief, and one of them muttered under his breath, awestruck at how deadly his skill was. Just as the tense standoff hit full tension, a young woman burst into the doorway smiling bright and calling him Argacoin. The thugs froze, stunned, and demanded to know who she was and why she was tied to their target. Before anyone could react, one of them lunged with a threat, barking that she better back off or get cut down. Her bright smile crumbled, and with a steady, unshakable look, she just told the man to shut up, because a conversation was happening right then. In the blink of an eye, the thugs crumpled to the floor, knocked out cold, and Kanado just stood there, shaking with pure disbelief at how fast everything flipped. He stood there stunned as she swung back to him, her smile fully back on her face, and she cheered that she'd been hunting him everywhere. His mind was sprinting, trying to grasp what just happened. He hadn't seen a thing. The shopkeeper froze in terror and recognition, then blurted her name, Sissel, and that single word snapped Kanado's attention. He stared at the young woman, and the name hit his mind like a bell, Sissel, the strongest human of all. Now that he finally understood, he swallowed the shock and asked, straight up, if she'd hear his request. He marched straight up with burning sincerity and demanded a party with me. He could only blurt out a confused noise while a bead of sweat slid down his temple, because sure, the invitation had come, but now Sissel's calm smile had him spiraling, stuck between this is fate's lucky break, and no, this is about to ruin me. What? Ken Otto nearly chokes on disbelief when Sissel asks him to join a party, because in his head the stories explode. The hero who toppled evil dragons, demon lords, and even gods by himself, so why would the world's strongest warrior want to team up with him? Sissel just stands there watching, eyes bright with hope, waiting for Ken's answer. He challenges her on the spot, asking for cold, hard proof that she's the real deal and not some fake. She struts in with total confidence, declaring who she is and daring him to doubt her, because her insane strength is already the evidence. She snaps into action the moment she realizes words won't cut it, whipping out a massive blade and announcing the divine bone blade, forged from an evil god's bone and a weapon only she can wield, while Kanado stays on edge, still haunted by his last run-in with a crooked dealer that left him feeling completely untrusted. He says, "Show me a weapon I've never seen before, and you still won't prove a thing." Embarrassment hits her like a punch. She blurts out how dumb she's been, then yanks her adventure card straight from her cleavage and declares she should have shown him from the start. He snatches the card and his eyes go huge as the impossible details hit. Cecil Lushergel, 18 years old, rank SSS, 3 titles stamped on her, Sword Saint, Holy Knight, and Dark Mage. Her level, attack power, and skills marked as immeasurable. It's irrefutable proof, but one question keeps clawing at him. Why would the strongest in humanity team up with an E-ranker like him? She kicks off her story. Ever since she was a kid, nobody has ever managed to outfight her, and Kanado blurts out that he's in awe, but Sissel shuts him down fast, saying it's not a flex at all, it's a tragedy. Her story keeps unfolding, and the loneliness hits hard, top of the world from the very start, with power that made life feel dead, empty, and pointless, no goals, no sparks, just craving something real. Chasing that elusive something, she tore across the world. Whether her enemies were wicked dragons, demon lords, or spiteful gods didn't even matter, because they couldn't touch her. Then despair hit hard. The truth was, she only wanted to feed one thing. After word spread about his power to beef up monsters through fusion, she clocked it. This was her one shot. With stars in her eyes, she tells Kanado, "If you can forge the strongest monster anyone can imagine, I'll finally get to feel the kind of defeat I've been craving." He hears her out, and a small, knowing smile tugs at his face as he digests her totally wild request. He swallows her words, a sweat bead sliding down his temple as her demand hits like a truck. Now he finally gets it. This party isn't just for fun, it's her real reason to pull him in. After thinking over her pitch, he finally agrees to team up on his terms only, and then he leans in and tells her he'll hear every word she has, setting the stage for whatever demand comes next. With their silhouettes split in the starkest silence, his condition hits with brutal simplicity, and he orders her to fight him right now. Once we push through, a massive coliseum explodes into view, packed wall to wall with a roaring crowd, while the arena floor sits empty, waiting like it's about to snap. The coliseum crackles with wild rumors. Some swear Sissel is here to throw down for a duel, others insist she's coming to take an entrance exam for her party. No matter what the truth is, a massive crowd has packed in, hungry to see what this infamous daredevil does next. In the crowd, Ken Otto clocks how packed the place is, then immediately realizes the shop guys must have spread the news, lucky for him, and not a second too soon. Down in the arena, she tilts her chin up, flashes him an impressed grin, and calls out his alias like she's in awe, Argo Cohen. Amazing. He grins when she clocks how unbelievably strong he's gotten, and right on the spot, just by looking she can tell, but he only smirks back and says he's keeping a promise. A week earlier, Kanado had admitted his present self wasn't worthy to stand beside Sissel, and then, pure fire in his eyes, He vowed he'd earn his place by proving, in just 1 week, that he could become the kind of man who'd be her true partner. He steps up in front of the crowd and takes the challenge head-on. Sissel flashes a confident grin and asks if she should show him what he's got, and he answers with a clean, rock-solid yes. Without a second word, Sissel surges forward, blade low, snapping the distance between them in the blink of an eye. As she comes closer, an insane pressure crashes into him. Her aura is so brutal he starts to doubt he can win. But he tightens his grip on resolve because backing out isn't an option anymore. The whole crowd stares, hanging on every move, then one spectator snaps, "That's Arga." But his voice drops because he looks nothing like before, while another guy whispers, "Is that really the same Kanado's lackey from back then?" The crowd's roar keeps slamming into his head, and it hits him. This is his name in the world now. So if he joined forces with Sissel right now, people would just laugh and brand him as Sissel's lackey. This clicks into place, and his resolve hardens like steel. He vows to never run again, to stride straight into the fight head-on and prove to everyone what he's truly made of. With his resolve forged into steel, he detonates with raw emotion, and the crowd erupts in shock, shouting that Arga has changed. Sissel's eyes flare wide, stunned by the insane speed he just hit. He barrels in, smashing the fight so hard dust and sparks erupt across the arena floor, and while he's at it, he can't stop thinking about that new power. 1 week of brutal fusion, and boom, over 100 level-ups plus a stack of serious new skills. Even with his crazy progress, Sissel can't crack her defense. She feels like she's staring at a giant wall, with zero opening to win against. For one breath, the chaos eases. Sissel stares at him, stunned, and praises Argo for managing to hang on so well. Then she drops the truth. He's got about the same strength she had when she was just 2 years old, and that hits him like a punch. Sweat pours, and he can't even find words. He slammed into his attack, and the crowd stared in disbelief as he traded clean strikes with Sissel, this legendary warrior who could drop evil gods in the blink of an eye. He hurled himself through the air, dagger primed for the final blow, but Sissel stayed stone calm, eyes locked on his charge. As he surged closer, a cold truth hit him hard. That black dragon weapon he'd bought from a shady merchant would get wrecked the moment it met her sword, made from the bone of an evil god. Sissel's voice sliced through his spiraling thoughts. She said she expected him to switch it up, maybe even lean on his monsters, then added that she'd hold back her on this time, because it'd be a mess if they got wiped out, and she made it crystal clear she had zero plans to hurt him. Her words felt like a doorway cracking open, so he lunged ahead, yelling that accidents can strike at any moment, no matter what. At his signal, his 3 tamed monsters, the wolf, the slime, and the dragon, exploded out of hiding and swarmed Sissel from every angle. Sissel's cool mask finally cracked. Her eyes went wide as she gasped, shouting that he was cheating, swearing she'd just said she wouldn't use her own monsters. But her protest hit exactly like he expected, so he snapped the creatures into a decoy move, slipping behind her with iron conviction, certain a strike from the rear could tear into even humanity's mightiest. Right as his dagger lunged toward her back, she talked mid-motion, calm as ice, and admitted the plan was a good one, just as his strike got stopped with effortless ease. With a contemptuous flick of her power, she swatted his 3 monsters away like annoying flies, and they spiraled through the air, completely helpless. Ken Otto froze in disbelief, his head spinning. Every single one of his 3 companions got wiped out in one split second. He scrambled to check them, and when he saw they were still alive, relief hit hard, but then panic followed. How did that even happen? Guilt punched through him, so he bowed and apologized, because their sacrifice had finally let him close the gap, yet it still all turned out to mean nothing. Right as he tried to think again, Sissel's voice sliced through his confusion. She pressed her weapon against his throat and said, calm as ice, "Yep, I win." Still on his knees, Kanado demanded how she even handled his 3 monsters. She smirked and told him the trick, move fast, and those afterimages just happen on their own. Then she shrugged off the creatures with a tiny finger flick, exactly like she had the other day, until Kanado finally let out a shaky laugh and admitted, "All right, I surrender." What? Her power hit him like a gut punch, and the way she casually wielded it left him completely speechless. His defeat stunned the crowd in the best way. Answer erupted in approval, calling it a great match, and screaming that he'd gained brand new respect for the Tamers. He looked up, a tiny grin breaking through when it hit him, no more mocking for his profession. Then Sissel turned to him and asked straight up if he was satisfied, and when he nodded, she slid in the question that changed everything. "Will you be my companion, Articuan?" He didn't hesitate, he said yes immediately. 2 days had barely slipped by when the brand new duo stood shoulder to shoulder at the looming entrance of the anicaps lab. Cecil shot him a look and asked if he wanted to watch her fight. He nodded and admitted he already knew how strong she was against people, but he had to see what she'd do against monsters in a real brawl, and Cecil confirmed he was totally on board. In the blink of an eye, that massive labyrinth beast crumpled before them, defeated. Sissel snapped her gaze to him, demanding his take, while Kanado, drenched in sweat, admitted that no matter how hard he stared, he couldn't track a single one of her moves and begged her to show it again. She said her real power was so sneaky you could barely even notice it, and a rank monster didn't stand a chance, wiped out in the blink of an eye. That revelation rocked him. Sissel then laid it out. To truly test her, they'd need an S-rank labyrinth, but rules barred an E-rank like him from stepping in. Determination hardened on Kanado's face. All right, then let's go take the test. When he made that declaration, Sissel's face lit up with pure excitement, and she practically begged him to take the promotion exam. She blurted out her dream, an SSS rank, but Kanado cut in like a cold splash of reality, reminding her that to even step into an S-rank labyrinth, he'd first have to earn that S-rank himself. Doubt flashed across his face, but Sissel snapped into action, promising she'd back him with a recommendation so he could take the exam. Her bright smile died in an instant and pure terror slammed into her face, because the truth hit her like a gut punch. If he was in a one-of-a-kind situation, and that meant the highest rank fate could hand him, what did that do to his future? The answer left her shaking with horror. Right at the brutal, gnarled entrance of an SS-rank labyrinth, Nymer's party halts, pigtails and all. The pigtail woman straight up admits she's shaking with nerves, but the hooded girl beside her snaps it down fast. Everything's fine. Nimmerus locks in with fierce determination and snaps that they can smash through even without Arga. Then he smirks and doubles down. They don't need a tamer at all. The hooded woman leans in and shouts with full confidence that they'll wipe out the dungeon and snag an SS-rank promotion. No help needed from the guy she's calling a loser now. Outside the Adventurers Guild, Kanado stands with Ansa and that winged hat girl, and then another adventurer strides up, grilling Kanado about whether he's heard any word about his old partner. He tilts his head just a bit, unreadable on his face, then confirms he heard they've started rolling out those chicken tactics. That other guy demands to know why they'd bet everything on such a messed up plan, and Kanado snaps back that the move is to skip all the weak monsters, then poison the boss. He figures they clearly don't get how crucial real knowledge is, which is exactly why they'd so easily toss aside a safer, wiser option. With a mustache bristling, the adventurer mumbles, "If you've got real skills, you'll know how priceless Tamer's info is," and right then ANSA stands beside a locked door. He shoves the door open, and the young woman with the medical bag slips in right on his heels. The door swings open and boom into a huge, empty room under harsh, cold light, with bare walls and only a handful of other doorways cutting through the silence. Right as ANSA steps in, he whips around to the person beside you and blurts out an apology for what? He stands in the ready room, facing Kanado and Sissel, and tells them straight up how shockingly far Kanado's come, then reveals why he's pushing so hard to earn the weight of an SSS rank challenge. He jumps back into the convo and tells me Sissel already told him they'd teamed up, forming a party together. Right in the middle of their chat, a thunderous voice slams in. One powerful guy with pointed ears barks, "Ansa, master," and tells them to cut the pointless small talk and get moving because he's done waiting. Kanado's face tightens at the man's dismissive tone, and Ansa snaps around to formally greet the newcomer. He introduces the man as Raja, an SSS rank adventurer, who's stepping in as the examiner for today's promotion test. A spark of recognition flashes across Kanado's face. He blurts out, "Have we met?" But Raja shuts that down and swears Kanado's just mixing him up with his brother, Razzle. As the name clicks into place, Hinato snaps. Razzle was the adventurer who duked it out with him at the guild, and when Raja hears it, his grim face hardens, confirming they really are brothers. Roger's calm snaps in half. He roars that Kanado beat his big brother so brutally that he's been depressed and locked away ever since. Kanado shoots back that Razzle started it and got exactly what he deserved. As Ant scolds Kanado for poisoning the whole mood, Roger's rage finally erupts and he screams that he'll kill him. Right between them, Ant throws his arms out and slams the chaos into place, telling both of them to square up face to face as he gets ready to lay down the rules of the test. He says the rules are dead simple. They're going to fight, and if Kanado manages a draw or better, he's through. The two fighters just stare each other down, and the air turns heavy with pure hostility. A brutal hit comes straight at him. Raja, roaring like a beast, swings his blade in a thunderous arc, trying to split him clean in two. That brutal killing intent in the first hit makes Kanado flinch hard. Raja roars that the opening strike decides everything, and he's here to finish the job, dead him. He snaps into action, ducking low and sliding out of harm's way just as the deadly strike rips through where he stood. The blade slams into the ground, and yet Roger's confident smirk is still there. Raja keeps hammering forward, taunting his opponent for hiding behind a guard and daring him to strike back, while the guild receptionist watches, fear creeping higher by the second. Her worry spikes and the receptionist whips around, sputtering that they have to step in, then blurts that Roger cheated by launching a surprise attack the second the fight began. Sissel stays perfectly calm, flashes a warm smile at the anxious receptionist, and tells her not to worry. She's sure the match will be over in no time. Her confidence feels dangerously off the mark as the fight explodes around them. Raja keeps driving forward, and from the outside it's clear Kanado is about to get crushed. The examiner hands him over to pure rage, laughing like a maniac as he shouts at his opponent to drop dead with every brutal swing of his blade. But his non-stop assault rips a gap open. Roger's wild, manic face snaps into sudden shock the moment he locks eyes with Kanado's icy, calculating stare. In the blink of an eye, Kanado rockets forward and lands one crushing punch. Raja gets blasted backward, slams into the wall, and his weapon clatters to the ground. He stared in shock as Raja crumpled on the ground, wiped out by that one brutal hit. The whole thing flipped so fast that the guild receptionist went utterly stunned. She couldn't believe it, because with that surprise attack, he should have been the one getting crushed. He calmly told him the truth. He'd expected a dirty fight from the start, so he'd been on guard the whole time. Ensa, the guild master, buted in and said Kanado looked stunned by that first onslaught. Kanado admitted it was true, then snapped that the only reason was Raj's moves were painfully slow, and the defeated examiner on the floor could only spit back incredulous rage. The thought hit him like lightning, then the fear followed. What if that slow pace was a trap, a sneaky plan meant to lull him into lowering his guard? His thoughts sprinted, snapping this move into place with that same dread he'd felt back when Raj's brother was involved, and as everything clicked, a cold unease crashed over him. Then he pulled out his own counter plan. If it was a trick, he'd feign weakness and bait Roger's reaction. When Roger didn't bite, everything clicked. The slow wasn't a show at all, it was real. The receptionist, still baffled, demanded why he dodged and circled for so long if he'd spotted how slow Raja was. Then she pressed him on whether that was even smart, and he finally snapped it clear. He wasn't going for a cheap hit, he was timing the perfect counter to beat Raja without ever landing a deadly strike. Then Ansa dropped the final piece of the mystery, revealing why Kanado wouldn't break loose. Nimra S had given him direct orders to hold back. The guild master locked eyes with Kanado, driving the point home, because Nimmers had begged him to show restraint from this moment on. He said straight up that he'd held back exactly the way he should, and Ansel just watched with a small, proud smile, grinning at how far Arda had come. With that, Ansa slammed a hand onto his shoulder and roared the final verdict, "You pass." His declaration thundered out of the guild hall, and just like that, Argobillion was officially stamped as an SSS rank adventurer. The proof of this brand new status hit hard, a spotless white card stamped with 3 letters that screamed the highest rank. Clutching his brand new card, he stood there with Sissel and the receptionist, who proudly told him that this rank let him walk into any labyrinth now, no limits. Sissel fired off, so what's our next move? While Kanado stared in disbelief, amazed at how quickly he'd reached SSS rank, Sissel just smirked, reminding him that she'd already warned him he'd be fine. He admitted that once you're free to go anywhere, picking one suddenly feels brutal, so the cheerful receptionist winked and said, "Why not throw a promotion party first and let it sink in?" And Cinnamon Sissel seemed to nod along as she called out his name. But that victory buzz got crushed in a blink. Right in front of them, 2 familiar figures were sprawled on the floor, trembling like something inside them just broke. His eyes went wide with shock the second he recognized them. One thought slammed through his head, "You guys." With their heads jolting up, Rebecca and Norsha's grimy faces burned with pure desperation. They cried out in one desperate plea for Arga to help them. Several hours ago, deep in a crumbling, vine-choked ruin, the air felt thick with danger nobody dared name. Inside, Nimra and his 2 female companions bolted up ancient stone stairs like their lives depended on it, racing from an unseen threat. Their getaway gets ripped out from under them when a giant stone column crashes down, smashing the steps behind them and blasting debris everywhere. Nemura gets forced to stop and blurts out that they're done, for his pursuer is just too damn strong. But his hooded partner grabs him by the spirit and begs him not to quit, pushing the dream he's chasing: becoming an SS rank adventurer. From the dark below, their terror finally steps into view, a hulking monster with blazing white eyes and a grin packed with razor-sharp fangs. When they spot the beast, the pigtailed woman begs Nimra to back off and use a return stone, but Nimra insists there's no way out. Then he shocks her by shoving her off the ledge, and she plummets straight toward the monster. His hooded partner bellows his name, furious, demanding to know what he's up to, and Nemura shoots back that Ratton will be okay, that she'll dodge and hold the line with defense magic. Then he snaps that this is their only shot to get out, promising they'll return for her later, right when the moment finally breaks. He and the other woman smash the return stone to life, Glow swallowing them whole as they vanish. While he spits out one last, cracked apology to Rattan, her face twists with terror and betrayal as she's stranded to face the beast alone. Right now, Kanado just stands there, stone-faced, while Naimra finishes his whole side of the story. Kanado shuts him down with a cold summary, then they ditch Rattan and run. Naimra snaps back furious, calling it a selfish cop-out, and begs Arga to help them save her. He smirks down at his old leader, sneering that with a tamer's knowledge they should have known how to take the creature down, and he snaps, "So why are you leaning on me now, after you banished me?" Then he drives the knife in with one final question. "Are you promising my banishment gets reversed if I sign back on?" He weighed their desperate plea for a beat, and the hooded woman pressed him hard. Was he really thinking about his banishment, or just pretending? He looked up with a calm face and finally snapped, "Yeah, I'll help you." His yes lasted about half a second, then came the sting. With a smirk that waved him off, he said it was a shame, but as a lowly E-rank adventurer, Nimmerus was barred from SS-rank labyrinths, and Nimmerus' face twisted with pure, boiling frustration. The two adventurers spun away, disgust burning in their faces, Nimmerus snapping curses at the damn tamer and railing that all their effort was wasted. Then, right as they started to walk off, Nimmerus suddenly remembered something crucial. He held his adventure card up like a trophy, grinning hard as a fresh stamp flashed a brand new high rank. Then he chirped that he'd totally forgotten he'd just been promoted. Nimra just stared, jaw dropped, stammering that an SSS rank was impossible, accusing Kanado of forgery, until Kanado calmly confirmed his new status, waved him into the SSS rank labyrinths, and then his face went cold as he snapped at Nimra to explain what he'd meant earlier about what. Right beside him, Cecil spat out her disgust, snarling that he could have ever been friends with such trash, while Kanato, with a sly wry smile, admitted he couldn't believe it either, not even in himself. His smile vanished and a serious resolve locked in as he made one solid promise. He'd go save her no matter what. Then he laid down his terms like a verdict. He'd rescue Ratun and hand her straight to the guild, but he'd do it solo, and he told his old companions they'd only slow him down, which instantly made Nemorus explode with outrage. He spun away from them and declared that he and Sissel would take on the labyrinth conquest, and the hooded woman's eyes popped wide when she clocked his partner, Sissel, the world's strongest. Nymer's voice hit with stunned outrage, insisting it was impossible for someone with that kind of legend to be standing beside Kanado. Even with their shock hanging in the air, the hooded woman snapped into it and saw the opening. Nemera grudgingly went along, too. As their plan clicked into place, Kanado and Sissel stood ready, their new partnership forged in the moment. He faced the towering gates of the Exalt Labyrinth, braced under thick, ancient roots gripping the stone, and Sissel asked for a moment to fuse her monsters. Then he spun toward her, furious with confusion, and demanded why she was going this far to help him. She waved off his worry with a grin, calling his old crew selfish scum with zero remorse, and then made it crystal clear he didn't owe them a single thing. He snapped that he wasn't trying to help, no matter how he felt, because he figured Ritun was probably already dead, and with a cold smirk he spilled the truth. This wasn't a rescue at all, it was his revenge playing out. He swore his revenge would be brutal. He'd smash the exact opponent those jerks couldn't even land a hit on. His eyes narrowed with cold intent, he'd make them choke on bitterness. Then his hand slid toward the system command marked fuse, ready to pull the trigger. Sissel caught on and asked, "Is that really all?" Then he grinned because he knew the revenge wasn't done yet, and a brilliant light finally exploded from his monster. The light suddenly blared brighter and brighter, washing them in a blinding glow. Sissel stared in pure shock, while Kanado stayed cool and calmly named what it was, a clear sign of evolution. As the lights died down, Sissel stared in shock at the monster that crawled out. She'd never seen anything like it before. Ken Otto just kept his eyes forward, grinning with pure anticipation, desperate to find out what came next. In those grand stone halls, the newly evolved, fox-like beast sprinted through everything, then smashed a metal stag beetle to pieces, ripping its armored carapace open with pure, savage force. They pushed deeper into the dungeon, and Kanado couldn't help but feel unimpressed. Nothing in here had shown up worthy yet, not until they got to the SS rank section. Sissel chimed in that Kanado and his old crew were just plain too weak, forcing them to hide behind coward tricks inside a labyrinth meant for lower ranks. As they press on, Kanado seethes, replaying his old parties, incompetence, and snapping that even trying chicken tactics with a busted strategy was just downright stupid. He snaps that trying to poison the boss when they're immune to status ailments is a total waste, and as he talks, the labyrinth's defenses rip through his summoned beast, one down, while he zeroes in on a weird, nagging inconsistency that just won't let him go. Sissel can't shake the feeling that something's off too, and then it clicks. The labyrinth's boss is a vampire. Ken Otto nods along, admitting his own big worry is the one thing that still haunts him. how Sissel's old party even managed to retreat in the first place. She says vampires are fiercely proud, and they can't stand when their prey slips away, so they would have absolutely blown magic to mess with their return stones. He agrees with the grim logic. No matter how many party members you toss away as blood bags, a normal vampire still wouldn't let the rest walk free. A sudden thought hits Sissel, and she blurts out a wild new theory. Maybe that vampire isn't just a monster, but a mutant. Right as they skid to a stop before that giant arched door, she snaps. If this is a vampire princess or vampire noble variant, its rank is SSS, far, far beyond even SS rank vampires. So why would a noble, stronger creature actually let them go, right? Sissel just shrugs and says stuff like that happens sometimes. Without a word, a sword rockets through the air, screaming straight for the massive stone door. The blade explodes on impact, shards skittering across the floor like junk, and Hinata just stares, face dead calm like it never mattered. He stood there unshaken, staring into the now open doorway as a voice slithered out of the dark and cackled, congratulating him for slipping past the bloodsword attack. She burst out of the shadows with a smug grin, and in that instant you could tell, young, noble, and unmistakably a vampire princess, Reina La Rilcia. Then she basically told them, "Congrats, you're honored you lived through my first hit." Her big dramatic announcement didn't rattle him, not even a little. His eyes narrowed as the truth clicked, confirming what they'd hoped for. She was the cissus-ranked mutant they'd been waiting for, the vampire princess. Then he snapped his focus to his companion and spoke straight to Sissel. She met his eyes with iron confidence and swore she'd leave the battle in his hands. The second she handed him her trust, a sinister, black circle started to ripple into life on the stone floor right in front of him, snatching Sissel's breath away. A swirling portal ripped open and two terrifying beasts burst out, a ferocious wolf and a hulking monster wearing a horned ram's skull like a crown, and Kanado just stood calm in the middle, waiting to slam them into the fight. Staring at the screen, Vampire Princess Riene's lips curled into a smug little smile. She knew exactly who he was, a tamer, yet she snorted at the idea and declared with rock-solid certainty that even the weakest monsters like them would never ever reach her. In the shattered chamber ruins, Riene, Vampire Princess, locks eyes with her foes, brimming with cold confidence, while her ram-skulled monster familiar looms beside her like a silent, crushing wall. Across from her, Kanado and Sissel brace themselves with Lily the snarling wolf at their flank. Reina snaps that she'll remember his name, then as the words hit the air, Kanado's mind clicks into place, Vampire Princess Reina. And the instant he connects it, the brutal defeat he and the others took finally makes sense, because if she's an SSS-rank monster, that impossible loss was never a mystery. His face hardens with iron resolve. He declares she's the very first SSS-rank monster he's ever going to slaughter, and that's exactly why he'll never forget her. Then he flashes his name, Arga, and orders her to remember the one who's going to end her. Riene's eyes narrow, and that smug confidence instantly melts into a silent, boiling rage. Her calm instantly shatters. Fang's beard and face twist with pure rage as she bares her teeth, furious at the audacity of him looking down on her. With a furious scream, she rockets forward, hurling the words "insolent fool" at him as her clawed hand shoots out to land the blow. Right as she laid down the accusation, Kanado snapped his arm forward and barked a sharp order, "Lala, Lily, go." Lily the wolf bursts into action on the spot, turning into a streak of white as she slams straight into Riene's attack with one crushing, clawed swipe. Their collision hits like a thunderclap, blasting both fighters backward through the sky. As Lily hits the ground, she doesn't get a second to breathe. Ramskull charges straight at her, horn lowered, ready to ram its new target straight into the gore. As her monstrous familiar clashed with the wolf's head-on rush, Riene got hit by a worse problem. Avalia's projectiles kept hounding her, so she yelped in pure frustration and snapped at her bees to get out of her way. Two bees slammed together with a thunderclap, sending a violent blur of fur and bone tearing through the air. The impact slammed into the ram's skull monster, and it stumbled back hard. Its momentum got completely shattered. Riene totally ignored the monster mayhem and, with predatory grace, launched through the air and slammed down on Kanado. She snarled, venom dripping from every word, demanding he die with regret. Then she surged in, closing the distance for the killing blow. But her strike never even touched him. He snapped to her with impossible speed, clamped her arms shut mid-attack, and dropped the vampire princess to the ground. He calmly sized everything up, clocking just how brutal her SSS-rank power was, and even though he'd already trained Lala and Lily to survive SSS-rank labyrinths, he admitted, quietly, that this fight was way tougher than he'd expected. She stared at him in pure disbelief, admitting she hadn't really meant to fight at all. She'd been testing his monster's power, using the battle to measure what they could do. His grip snapped tighter, a harsh curse slipped out, and fury surged through him like, how dare she, while she fought and writhed against his hold. Rage curdled in her chest, dread crashing in like a wave, her eyes snapping wide as she stared at him and the words tore out, "Are you human?" Her question about whether he was truly human got answered with one brutal kick. She shot backward, skidding across the clear floor. She screamed in agony as she skidded across the ground, her body taking the brutal hit until she finally fought off the momentum and stopped. He just watched her calm as the storm, because out of every enemy he'd ever faced, she was the deadliest, but then he snapped in one key warning: she still wasn't as strong as. Before she even had time to absorb his words, he snapped the distance shut and slammed her again with a vicious hit right in the midsection. Her eyes flew wide, flooded with shock and agony. She stumbled back, but she wouldn't give up. Her hand shot to her side as she drew a short, ornate dagger that flared to life with a faint magical glow. She lunged in, screaming a curse straight at him, and he snapped at her for losing control. Then he simply sidestepped her frantic thrust with effortless ease, stopping her dead mid-swing. With a lightning-fast pinpoint strike, he slammed his blade down and shattered her dagger into a cloud of deadly fragments. His follow-through came instantly. His hand slammed into her, and the hit sent ripples of raw impact rolling through her. The impact slammed into her, stealing her breath, and blood streamed from her mouth as that brutal force tore through her. Her shock and pain snapped into cold fury. She locked eyes with him and swore she'd never forgive Arga, then surged with dark energy and vowed she'd wipe him out with her deadliest magic. She rips out her ultimate spell, unleashing a raging blizzard of endless magical arrows that swarm the sky, each one blazing with deadly purpose. The bullets scream through the sky, each one a certain death, while she braggingly swears that anyone who's ever touched this magic didn't live to tell the tale. Even with the assault crashing in from every side, Kanado and Sissel just stare it down, calm as ice, faces utterly unreadable. Her confidence detonates into a wild, unstoppable roar as she screams for her opponent's total downfall. He just stays rock solid, completely unshaken, as the lethal barrage crashes in. Her triumphant glee snaps into shock, pure disbelief. He tilts his head, murmurs one quick command to the little dragon on his shoulder, and orders it to unleash dragon breath on Lala. The tiny creature snaps its jaws wide, and somehow stores a shocking amount of energy inside that little body. It tears open a spinning storm of pure energy and rips forward with a brutal blast, slamming straight into the incoming attack. A dragon's breath crashes into the vanguard of the magical arrows and starts swallowing their power in an instant. The vampire unleashes its ultimate magic, but it's useless, its shots evaporating into nothing while the dragon's breath keeps surging forward, unstoppable. He watches the steam finally peel away. Then there's Riene, the vampire princess, trembling against a burned wall, her ultimate strike smashed flat before it can even land, while her eyes go wide with pure, shattered terror. He keeps his cool, telling her flat out that her brutal magic might have wiped out anyone, except a tamer. He declares the fight's over and tells her goodbye, but Riene suddenly goes meek, then blurts out her surrender, and that wild turn of events instantly throws him for a loop. Her pride shatters to nothing, tears pour down her face as she sobs and begs, apologizing over and over, pleading with him not to kill her. This sudden breakdown rattles his companions to the core. Sissel blurts out in stunned amazement, while Kanado is completely thrown off as Reina's heartbreaking, tearful pleas pour out. Sissel, practically grinning at the chaos, tells Kanado how wild it is to see a proud vampire princess sobbing and begging for her life, while Kanato's still left frozen, not knowing what he's supposed to do next. Just as he hesitates, Riene snaps into a shocking new politeness, Argue-sama, and drops a request in his lap. Sissel's practically vibrating with excitement, pushing him to listen to the princess. That sudden change in her behavior blindsides him, and he stumbles as he nervously asks what she wants. While tears sparkle in her eyes, Riene then chokes out her request, begging him to let her use his power. She tilts her head up at him, desperation and stubborn courage battling in her eyes, and then she drops the impossible bomb: "Please kill my father." Those jaw-dropping words slam into the air, and Kanado and Sissel freeze, stunned, speechless, and staring blankly. All he can scrape out is one confused question: what? Wait, Kanado stood in that huge, tiled cavern room, staring, as the vampire princess dropped her shocking demand on him, and he blurted it back in disbelief: "Kill your father and..." Riene answered his question right away, saying this all started about a month ago, and Kanado's mind raced, because only something truly insane could make a proud vampire princess ask for her own father's death. He urged her to go on, and Sissel quietly thanked her for trusting them with the truth. Her tale kicked off right in the very room she shared with her regal vampire noble father, until 3 hooded clergy shadows slipped in, and she and her dad instantly figured they'd wipe them out like always. Riene swore this run-in hit different. The clergy were brutally strong, and their faces stayed buried in shadows, only those unsettling smiles slipping through. Their power hit like a tidal wave, fast and brutal. The intruders knocked her father down, then one of them jabbed an unknown drug into his neck with a syringe. Right after that, they disappeared like they were never there. The substance's effects were downright terrifying. Renee told me that ever since that day, her father's mind has been slipping bit by bit until he finally turned into a mindless savage beast. Back in the present, that memory slammed into him, and tears blurred everything as she admitted she couldn't stand watching him like this anymore, begging to set him free, then breaking down as she said the only way was to end his life. With Renee's painful plea still ringing in the air, Sissel spun on Kanado and demanded what he planned to do. Then Renee snapped that her own power wasn't even close to her father's, and that's why she'd been waiting for someone strong enough to beat him. While Kanado weighed the offer, Renee's eyes brimmed with tears, but her expression turned stone, grimly locked in, refusing to back down until the job was done. His unspoken nod hit the vampire princess like a spark. She blurted out heartfelt gratitude on the spot, and Kanado laid out his plan in plain words. If they didn't take down her father, they'd never crack the labyrinth, and yeah, he admitted he was just curious too. He leaned in as Sissel said what was on her mind. Raina's father was hit with something suspicious, and he couldn't ignore her gut check. Those clergy attackers didn't feel real, because they should worship holy magic and hate anything medical. He snapped his focus back on the vampire princess, agreed to her request, and slapped on one condition. Renee stared him down, nodding like a vow, ready for whatever came next. She inched closer, heat rising in her cheeks, and with a shy breath she asked him to be gentle, because it was her first time. Completely stunned, he jerked back and barked in shock, yelling that he had no idea what she thought she was ready for. Sissel cut in right away, blasting Reina as a pervert and insisting the price wasn't her body. Then Kanado blurted, cheeks burning, that he was only talking about making her his companion, not anything else. That simple clarification left Reina even more shell-shocked. Her eyes snapped wide as her mind hurtled from just friends to the wild idea of marriage, and it completely drove Kanado into pure frustration. He clapped his terms down like a threat because he didn't trust her. He'd tame her and claim control, and if she even thought about pulling something shady, he'd lock her away in the shadows. Renee totally took his words the wrong way. Her cheeks flared as she blushed, and she decided the plan was simple. Prove she's trustworthy, then they'll get married. He ignored it and snapped impatiently that she should just lead them straight to her father. With Sissel leading the way, the three of them started down a twisting stone staircase, sinking deeper into the earth. Reina's dad was down there, and Reina even joked that he'd developed a downright weird love for underground places. He scanned the shadows, and the dim, cavernous place felt like something straight out of a vampire's lair, until Sissel pointed out that multiple passages opened up into the underground complex. Then he grilled Renee, demanding whether she'd spotted any dumb-looking guys around lately. Then she paused, shook her head, and quickly corrected herself. 3 of them, 1 man and 2 women. He stood in the cavern with a grim face while Sissel replayed everything that dragged them to this point. Kanado's old party sneaking through the dungeon with cowardly tricks until they finally ran into Reina's father, and even a tone crossing her mind, left behind somewhere as Sissel wondered what she was going through. The 3 of them pressed deeper together, shrinking against the crushing, ominous expanse of the underground chamber. As they pushed forward, a vile stench slammed into them and made Kanado recoil on the spot, yet Renee clocked it instantly, and with grim certainty she swore her father was close. Her sentence snapped shut as a monstrous, clawed hand crashed into the ground right in front of them, splitting the stone with a brutal thunderclap. From the swirling dust and shattered debris, a nightmare stepped into view, towering and skeletal, with nothing but whip-thin flesh except for those grotesquely massive arms that dangled almost to the ground, while thick steam blasted from its hulking body as it loomed right in front of them. The creature chomped on something you couldn't even see, and it was downright foul, so Kanado snapped, disgust burning hot in his gut, and yelled for his little slime buddy. "Lulu, come out." He leaned in and laid out everything to Sissel. Sure, the creature didn't look like a top-tier threat, but his slime and glue came packed with detox skills, a last-resort plan he was ready to bet on, and that tiny slime trembled, sensing the tension in the air. But before it could do a thing, the slime erupted into a blinding glow. Kanado froze in shock, realizing this moment wasn't just any attack, it was evolution starting right on the spot. A sudden surge of raw energy exploded out of the little creature, and it blindsided both him and Renee in the blink of an eye. When the light died out, Lulu wasn't the same anymore. She morphed into a giant, ink-black octopus-like beast, its wide, unblinking eyes locked straight ahead. Its new body turned into a pitch-black slime, and the status screen instantly labeled it a Shaggoth, something Kanado had never seen in the wild before, even though its stats had already skyrocketed. As Kanado stared, stunned by where the creature came from, Sissel's face tightened, serious now. she remembered a brutal fight with an evil god and swore a Shoggoth had been one of its deadly subordinates. She broke down the danger. These evil god monsters don't just fight, they poison your mind with a horrifying mental contamination that twists people until they lose their sanity. Her words snapped a realization into Kanado. He caught the same evil god scent hanging in the air around Reina's father, and he saw it tied to the drug he'd been injected with. That had to be where the madness and confusion were coming from. Sissel followed his gut and figured that the evil god's presence and that creepy smell might have triggered Lulu's sudden evolution, even if she couldn't swear to it. The truth hit Riene like a truck. She clenched her fist as it all clicked, and she finally realized the clergy weren't who they said they were. Out loud, she choked on the question, why would they curse her father with a fate like this? Her heartbreaking cry got snuffed out the moment her father's monstrous shape loomed in their path, and Kanado spun to Riene, desperate for one last answer. Was she ready to let him kill that thing? Riene clamped down on her fear and gave her consent. Her blessing fueled his courage. Then he squared up, grit in his voice, and faced the grotesque beast as it came charging straight at him. He slammed straight into the charge with his blade out, and he knew one truth. No matter how hard a vampire noble regenerated, decapitation would kill it for good, so he aimed to cut its head off. But as he charged closer, a flash of something yanked his focus. He skidded to a stop, his swagger cracking, and his face twisting into pure, stunned disbelief when he finally recognized what was in front of him. His eyes go wide with pure shock as the monster's massive fist slams to a stop inches from his face. That split-second pause costs him everything. The monster's fist slams into him and he flies backward across the ground, tumbling hard. Reina screams his name, furious over that delayed move, because right after, the creatures hammer the spot where he'd been standing, pulverizing it. He scrambles to dodge the non-stop assault, and the monster's creature slams the ground again and again, each impact cracking the stone floor in a violent, mindless frenzy. As another strike whips past him, Riene's voice slices through the chaos, telling him to find a crack, back up, and keep his distance, so he hauls himself off the ground, jaw clenched, and growls back, "Got it." The creature gives him zero mercy, guts and grit roaring as it lunges forward again. It whips around wildly, and he's forced to dive sideways as another earth-shattering punch blasts the ground where he stood just a second ago. He scrambles for a fresh plan, realizing that tossing darkness in its eyes won't cut it, and then he clocks the truth. He only needs a sliver of time because the brand new ability he just gained is ready to go. He slams the plan into motion, yelling to his partner, Lulu, madness, confusion, and the little slime drifts forward, pulsing hard as it spits out concentric waves of energy. The rings streak forward and slam the back of the monster's head, and the creature jerks back hard, energy snapping and crackling around it as the mental attack hits. The strike lands. Otto can't stop watching with grim grit, while Riene and Sissel stare on, hearts clenched with fear and burning with hope. The mental assault lands dead on. Its monstrous face twists as it lets out a silent, soul-crushing scream, while that unseen attack smashes straight through its mind. It thrashes like a storm, those giant arms whipping around as it roars and tortures everything in its path. The violent jolt slams it to the ground, where it skids and jerks in panic, fully knocked out by the confusion spell while Kanata just watches, stunned. He finally exhales, relief flickering into a small smile. Yeah, it worked. Relief hits him for a second, then Riene's voice slices in. She calls him Arga and asks if he zoned out. He fesses up that he ran into someone nasty, then trails off, muttering that even right now, they're still yanking him down. While all that rages in Rainer's mind, his transformed father lies battered in the rubble, helpless, with pure anguish carved across his face. Sissel starts guessing the monster might have been reanimated, the one Kanado left behind, and she's sure it can't be a vampire's thing since vampires can't turn you to stone, so she wonders if the evil god's grip woke them up. Then Kanado cuts in, admitting he wasn't driven by anything dark, he was just thrown off by how she looked. He shrugs off the speculation, locks back onto Reina, blurts out an apology for the delay, and promises he'll wrap this up fast. Reina can't find comfort in his words. Tears pour down her face as she watches her father writhe on the ground, still clutching his head in raw, unbearable pain. Seeing Riene's misery break her, Kanado snaps into action. He orders Lulu to shut down the madness confusion at once, and even Sissel is stunned by the command until Kanado explains. The creature may have lost its mind, but it's still his companion's father. He pulls out a tiny razor-sharp blade, eyes locked on like he's made of pure resolve, then he announces his decision. The creature gets to fight with dignity, right up to its last moments. From up above, Reina locks eyes on him, while Kanado plants his feet, dagger poised, as the monstrous shape of her father rockets through the air to strike. He says, full confidence, that this time it won't end like last time. Then the creature snarls with a gut-churning roar and charges straight at him. The creature whips a massive arm at him, but Kanado is lightning fast. He slips under the strike and carves clean through the monster's bicep with his blade. He touches down cleanly just as the monster jerks back, gripping its severed arm and roaring in pure rage. It swings back with its other arm, but Kanata slips out of the clumsy blow again, while the severed hand spins through the air behind him. A severed limb slams onto the ground with a sickening wet thud right by Riene. She jerks with a shocked gasp, while Kanato's eyes bulge as the monster locks onto its smoking stomach, glaring straight at them. From a smoking stump, black, syrup-thick tendrils burst out and stitch his whole arm back together in seconds, reforming it like a nightmare come alive. He stares in stunned disbelief. His attack should have shattered the Wonderot, but the monster's regeneration is so fast it laughs at him. Rage builds as he realizes this fight won't end until he chops off its head. Right before this new strategy even has time to kick in, the monster's freshly regenerated arm starts to shake, then balloons with sickening size as its muscles bulge unnaturally. The mutated limb, now a towering, hardened club, slams into the rocky ground with a crushing, earth-shaking impact. The creature's strike slams a massive stone pillar to pieces, blasting rubble everywhere, and from far off, Riene can't stop staring. She's trying to figure out Kanato's plan, because why would he smash something like that? It stops holding back and grabs a huge chunk of the shattered pillar, ready to smash it into the enemy using the environment as a weapon. He jukes out of the way at the last second as the monster slams a massive rock down, blasting the exact spot where he'd been standing a heartbeat ago. The missed shot doesn't stop it. This creature snarls out a gut-churning roar and fires up its next projectile. He quickly realizes the monster is playing it smart, switching to ranged attacks so it won't get cut up in close combat, and he's confident as long as those shots miss, he'll be okay. His confidence wobbles the second a grim truth hits him, and he clenches his teeth in pure, frustrated rage. He whips his head away from the beast and shouts to Sissel for help, and Reina clocks what that means. If Sissel takes it down, it won't count as Kanato's win. He cuts in fast, grinning with certainty. He'll be the one to strike the monster down for the final blow. He's not begging for backup to fight, he's pointing at someone far off, telling Sissel to go grab that person. Raton lies motionless on jagged rubble, totally exposed and vulnerable. He tells her he can't make a real move while she's in the line of fire. He's terrified a stray attack will shatter her, even by accident, so Sissel nods and promises to help. And then, way to her shock, Reina jumps in too, saying it'll be over fast with everyone backed up and ready, while Kanato steps in to fully take on the monster with everything he's got. As his plan kicks into gear, Sissel rockets away in a flash, then leaves Raton standing there, stunned, scrambling to figure out where she vanished to. Reina's father, this monster's creature, stares around in pure confusion, because he can't keep up with Sissel's blur as she rockets across the battlefield, hauling Reina straight toward the opening room. She flashes up beside the beast in the blink of an eye, Riene's lifted high as she winks at her transformed father, grinning as she taunts him, and boasts that he can actually track her every move with his eyes. Her words light a fire under the creature. Its throat erupts in a brutal, guttural roar, pure frustration spilling out. A hulking fist slams into the ground, and a roaring shockwave blasts outward from the earth, missing Riene by a hair as she gasps in terror. From a safe distance, Kanato watches the perfect diversion pull off flawlessly, and a quiet little smile creeps onto his face as he silently mouths his thanks to Sissel. With the monster's gaze locked on her at last, Sissel smoothly slings Reina over her shoulder and starts backing away, leaving a stunned Raton staring as they disappear. As she hauls the vampire princess, Sissel tosses out a casual remark, "Wow, you're heavier than you look," and then jokingly suggests she might need to rethink her diet. Once the others are finally out of the danger zone, Kanato whips his focus straight onto the monster, declares that he can move without holding back and says it's time to finish this, while behind him, Ratun stares in shock, saying she couldn't even track his movements at all. When the creature takes his challenge, it crouches low, pure rage surges through it, and the ground beneath it starts to split and shatter from the sheer force. Ken Atto lunged at the monstrous thing in front of him, shouting for Lala as a hulking skeletal beast with ram horns crawled into view. Then he ordered it to blast dragon breath and scorch everything in its path. The skeletal beast obeyed, and unleashed a brutal torrent of energy that swallowed the whole area in a blinding flash. That blast detonated into a roaring wall of smoke, swallowing the battlefield whole, and right where Sissel stood, she fumed. She couldn't see a single thing through that brutal haze. Suddenly, a furious roar erupted from the smoke, and the monstrous vampire shot forward like the attack never even landed. The creature kept charging without mercy, its twisted, fang-filled snarl blasting out as it burst from the fading smoke. Just as it surged forward, a tiny dark object rocketed through the air and slammed it right on the side of the head, stopping it cold. The creature staggered from the sudden hit, its head snapping sideways as it glared at the object, and it started to smolder. Turns out that projectile wasn't a weapon at all. It was Kanado's tiny, quivering slime familiar. While the monster's focus got yanked away, Kanado swooped in from above and behind, and he knew the decoy actually worked. Then, with a chilling stare, he tore into his target, biting as the monster's eyes bulged in stunned realization. The beast thundered with pure rage as Kanado's eyes burned with grim resolve, and he dove in for a decisive strike, while Sissel and Rene, from far off, could only stare in shock, stunned to silence. He slams his blade into the monster's neck, and the impact rips its head clean off. Then the grotesque body and severed head tumble through the air like they're falling apart. His blade carves straight through flesh and bone, and a brutal spray of dark blood erupts as the fatal cut lands. With the monster's hulking body dropping dead to the ground, he lands smoothly on his feet and turns away like the fight never mattered. Kanado snaps his focus to Rene, perched on a rock, staring at the wreckage, tears pouring as she whispers a final, quiet goodbye to her father, and when he sees her breaking, he immediately presses, "Are you okay?" She looks up at him through tear-soaked eyes, grief and grit tangled in her face. Then she squeezes out a shaky smile and tells him, "Yeah, it hurts like hell, but she's still okay." She breaks it down, saying watching her father still breathe in that crazed, monster-filled state would have been way worse agony to live through. Once the crushing truth is finally spoken, a wooden chest drops onto the ground, proving the dungeon boss is defeated. Reina rushes to thank him from the bottom of her heart and even calls him Argyusama, but he only tells her, "Don't mention it." What? His eyes lock onto the prize and he drops to one knee beside the chest. Realizing it's a boss drop, he blurts out, "What's in it?" Just as he studies the chest, Sissel's sudden gasp yanks his focus. There on the ground is the monster's head at all. It's a woman's severed head, eyes staring wide, already gone lifeless. Its pale skin and frozen face are terrifying to look at. Then, all at once, its eyes ignite with a wrong kind of light, and a jolt of energy snaps through the air like lightning. Kanado locked eyes on that floating disembodied head, and Sissel's urgent voice blasted through the silence, her eyes wide with panic as she warned him the head was still there. He barely caught what she said before the severed head started to swell out of control, its flesh bubbling and stretching at a horrifying, unnatural speed. When the waves surged and thrashed, Sissel snapped into action, slinging the unconscious Rene over her shoulder as Rene yelped, "Kanado," and Sissel backed away fast from the danger closing in. He brushed off her desperate plea, jaw tightening as he stared down the pulsing object with iron resolve. A split second later, a cataclysmic explosion detonated through the chamber, blasting out right where the head had been. The blast slammed everything back, blasting up a savage cloud of dust and debris. Then Sissel and a suddenly shaken Reina, stuck at the edge of the danger zone, whipped around and stared in horror as Sissel roared his name straight into the chaos. After that brutal battle, a massive burst of dust and smoke erupts from the explosion's center, swallowing the whole scene until nothing can be seen. Rene stands at a safe distance, eyes wide with panic, and whispers Kanado's name into the dusty air while Sissel watches, calm on the surface but clearly thinking. Sissel stared at the blast and said, "That's it, Reina's father's power just got unleashed all at once." Then she frowned, realizing she'd expected the evil god's strength to be dialed up even more, and since Kanado had leveled enough to track her movements, she couldn't wrap her head around why he wasn't running. Her brow pinches as she keeps going, then slips in, "This is just a guess." Right in the middle of the blast zone, Kanado drops to his knees under Luli, the slime's protective cover, and then it hits him. Rene's father just blasted him with a mental attack, an evil god power he finally recognizes as mental contamination. Sissel blurts out her theory in a rush, wondering if someone somehow locked his movement away, and Rene, staring through the smoke, snaps into total shock, refusing to believe it. She snaps her head around towards Sissel, eyes bulging with pure panic, blurting out if his assessment could really be true. Right then, Kanado bursts out of the fading smoke looking totally untouched. Reina gasps and shouts his name, so relieved he's alive. He stays calm and tells her it wasn't an actual attack, it was something almost exactly like it. Then he flashes a confident smirk and spills the truth. Lala the dragon stood guard and hit the exact moment the explosion went off, saving him. He whips out a tiny, fancy treasure chest from the terrain and swears it's a boss drop and a gift from her dad. Then she asks if he really opened it, and he nods flat out, saying he did, but the moment it happened, her father's feelings flooded his mind and threw it off. He snaps back to the moment right after the fight, standing over the vampire's severed head while pleading whispers crawl out of what's left. "Please, please." That plea slammed into his mind, bursting his heart open and flashing a chaotic storm of broken images. Sissel leans in, eyes locked, and asks if that plea was really a request to look after Rene, while Rene beside her breaks down, weeping and whispering "Father" under her breath. Kanato nods and says it was part of the plan, but not the whole story. A heavy dread sinks in as he weighs his next thought. There's one more request coming. Right back in the present, inside the Adventurers Guild, Kanato strides in with Ratun and slams her petrified form onto the table so everyone can stare. Nymra screams Raton's name, her voice breaking with shock, while the other adventurers huddle and whisper, sure she's either been crushed by Medusa or Hydra, yet Ansa just watches it all unfold, stone-faced and silent. He swings his focus back to Nymra's crew and flat out declares it. That labyrinth was a monster, yet he crushed it solo and came back unscathed. Then he leans in and dares them to answer one thing, so what are you planning to do now? Rage cuts through the stunned silence as Nymra deflects, then snaps, demanding to know how Kanato plans to reverse Raton's condition. His eyes lock onto Raton's stone-still form as he pushes harder and harder, because Kanato must have snagged a curse-breaking item from a boss drop, and that's the only explanation he'll accept. Nymra and his hooded partner step up to Kanato, faces blazing with rage. They demand to know how he'll bring her back and whether he really beat the labyrinth at all, but Kanato just stares at the ground, silent and refusing to answer. He shoots them cold questions. Why are they complaining instead of grateful? He calls out how clueless and self-serving they're being, then demands to know whose fault they think this mess is. Nymra screams his name and Kanato's smug grin dies. He realizes he was a fool for mocking him earlier. He already crushed an enemy they couldn't even land a hit on, so now he's done playing nice. He vows to make them swallow the same misery and wants to sever ties with them as fast as possible. He flips the accusation right back on them, demanding to know why he should hunt for a cure when they were the ones who tossed Raton aside, and the adventurers around him go completely silent, shocked. The accusation rips through the guild hall like wildfire. One adventurer screams that Nimra's party left their companion behind, and suddenly everyone starts spitting out old rumors about a tamer the same group abandoned. In seconds, the mood flips hard against Nimra, and the crowd hammers one truth into the air. For adventurers, ditching a comrade is the one unforgivable sin. The moment they start talking, it all combusts. Adventurers storm in and start smashing mugs and bottles at Nymra's, yelling that he and his crew are scum and dragging the whole thing into disgrace. Hood gets hammered again, gasps in agony and begs them to stop, while the barrage keeps smashing down on him. An adventurer slams Nimra from behind, snarling at the trash to back off and leave him alone. With a boot crushing his head to the floor, Nymra clenches his teeth, then it hits him like a punch. Kanato predicted this exact moment and set up the guild handover just to trap them. Desperate, he locks eyes with the guild master, Ansa, and yells for help, insisting the others don't get what's really going on. Then Ansa drops his gaze, face set in grim certainty, and confirms the rumors are, sadly, true. The guild master's stare sharpens as he grills Nemeris to admit whether he left his companion behind. Then Nemeris scrambles to explain, but the crowd roars him down. Ansa steps in, cold and certain. No matter the excuse, that kind of conduct doesn't belong in an adventurer, and when she points out the logic, if this was a bandit, why would only Raton be petrified while the others stay totally untouched? The room gets even heavier. He pressed on with his verdict, voice ironclad as he faced Nymra and her companion. Then he slammed the truth down. They didn't need mercy, they needed reflection and punishment. The punishment hit like a wrecking ball. Both of them got stripped down and demoted to E rank, and that verdict landed on Nymra and the hooded woman so hard their faces twisted in raw, breathless shock. He snapped out in disbelief, sweat pouring down his face as the loss finally landed. 5 brutal years to grind his way to S rank, and now it was gone in the blink of an eye. As Nymra reeled from the judgment, Kanato spun around and marched off in silence. No word, nothing. Right behind him, the guild master's booming voice snapped orders, demanding he find a way to undo Nymra's petrification and sneering that Nymra fully got what was coming. He burst out of the guild hall and there was Sissel waiting right there. She stepped up, eyes sharp, and demanded to know if he'd wrapped up his business inside. Reunited with his party, Kanato blurted out that Riene's new dress looked perfect and praised how well her father's gift fit her. Then Riene thanked him, and the moment she finished, she snapped, "So what happened to your revenge against your old party?" What? He shot them a dismissive smirk, then shrugged it off. Yeah, they'd hurt, but he didn't care about those people anymore. Riene nodded, grinning as she said that good companions were the sweetest revenge. Then she leaned in and asked what he was going to do next, and with a razor-sharp stare, Kanato declared he'd already. He dropped the twist. His plan wasn't over at all, it was pure revenge. Rina froze, sure it was done, but Kanato stepped in and said this fresh round of payback was aimed at her father. He stared at her hard and told her, right before it all ended, her father had one last demand for him. He starts explaining what this request really is. then admits that a while back Riene's father showed him some pictures, and right after that, cloaked, suspicious figures started gathering near a busted, crumbling old building. He explains that these aren't random at all, they're scraps of memory his father could feel, left inside him after that fake clergy pumped him full of power from a vile ghost. Standing on a stone bridge with her crew, Sissel weighs the new info and fires back. Does he plan to use that gut feeling as the clue to track them down and finally claw out his revenge? He whips his gaze to Riene and asks if she wants revenge too. Her eyes go wide with fire, and she agrees instantly, no hesitation at all. Her first burst of confidence fades fast, and doubt creeps in, quietly wondering if it's really right to pull Canato and the others into her family's private mess. Rebecca senses Sissel's hesitation and rushes in with a reassuring smile, telling her she doesn't have to hold back now that they're all in this together, companions. And Sissel doesn't even hesitate back. She admits she wanted to hunt those culprits herself. Rebecca lays it all out. She's determined to feed an evil god, and that means she feels duty-bound to stop everyone tangled up with those dark powers. Kanato's grin spreads as his party locks in together, eyes full of purpose. Then he declares their path is chosen and it's time to leave. Then he declares their first mission, track down that ancient building from the vision, and the whole crew pushes straight into a field of crumbling, ancient ruins. Hidden from everyone, 3 cloaked figures linger deep within the very same ruins, standing shoulder to shoulder in the harsh light, hoods pulled low, their faces swallowed by shadow. Inside the wreckage, a cloaked figure let out a weary breath and admitted it. If their mark got taken down by humanity, as strongest, then this was always going to happen. Another member snapped their tongue with a sharp click and shut that idea down. Yeah, the vampire noble really was defeated, but it happened at the hands of someone with a second occupation. He pressed on, saying the one who beheaded the noble was a tamer named Arga, the woman's companion, and the smaller hooded figure beside him chimed in that the vampire princess had slipped into their ranks too. At that, the first man's expression turned grim, because he knew her arrival was going to make everything a nightmare. That smaller figure didn't budge at all. Then a sly smile flickered across their lips as they declared, "I've got an idea." Their leader spun around to face the gathered crowd, shot a hand up and proclaimed, "For our noble wish, don't fear any opponent, no matter who they are." Meanwhile, Canato trudged right beside Riene and Sissel, revenge finally in his hands, and with a hard, steady stare, he vowed to smash every obstacle that tried to block their path. In a spotless, bright facility, a hooded senior clergyman with a weathered, shadowy face gets shown around, while an attendant leans in and asks if he's happy with everything. He nods, says it's just perfect, and then steps down a staircase into the huge, darker level below. He strides into a massive, humming laboratory, and everywhere he looks, giant containment pods throb with bubbling liquid, chained together by a tangled web of pipes and machines. Scientists in crisp white coats bustle around grim experiments, and he keeps moving forward, up. The clergyman steps up to the scientists and tells them he's counting on their work to go on. Then his eyes lock onto a nearby pod, where Riene's father's monstrous, warped body hangs, suspended and lifeless, and a grim, satisfied smirk creeps across his face. Suddenly, bam, a deafening crash blasts out from the lab's entrance, and the clergyman plus the scientists spin around in pure alarm as the wall explodes into rubble, blasting debris through the room. Shocked cries and total confusion roar through the air. The first breach sparks a massive explosion that rips through the entrance. Blast waves smash machinery to pieces, and scientists tumble through the air, surrounded by shattered glass and twisted metal. Amid the wreckage, a ruthless dark force barrels through the remaining scientists, dropping them instantly where they stand. The hooded priest locks eyes with the attacker and freezes in pure horror because it's the vampire noble's daughter. His thoughts spin at full speed. Did Arga, the tamer everyone talks about, just show up too? He grumbles to himself, annoyed as hell at how fast that kid's name spread. Pushing through the wreckage, Canato Aurelian bursts in with Riene right beside him, then smirks and says it must mean he's finally earned his reputation, if even a sketchy old man he's never met knows his name. The clergyman lets out a furious groan, demanding to know how they found that secret place, and Kanata stays ice calm, saying a kind vampire noble tipped him off. His face hardens, his eyes pinning the world with sheer determination. Then he snaps, voice flat and final, "I've come to avenge him." His vow of revenge doesn't shake anyone. It just draws a cold, calculating stare from the head clergyman, who looks him over like he's got questions, and then asks about their objectives. He snaps around and roars at the subordinate below, tossing aside any excuse for small talk, then orders the scientists to set the magic beasts loose and let them rip into the intruders. At the command, a massive gate ROARS open, and 2 hideous, scaly monsters lunge out, jaw gaping, tentacles thrashing like they're ready to tear everything apart. The beast barreled toward Kanado while the clergyman stared from above, realizing he's outmatched alone, so he uses the chaos to break free. Down below, one of the creatures hoists its massive foot, ready to stomp Kanado into the dirt. Their attack gets snuffed out in a blur. Both monsters have their heads chopped clean off before they even get a single hit in. The clergyman staggers back in total disbelief, eyes bulging as he finally clocks the blur of motion that just wipes out the creations. He spots Reyna standing in the middle of the carnage, and her power crushes every expectation he had. Then he blurts out that the vampire noble's daughter must be holding terrifying strength, or maybe it's a crazy fusion technique. But Kanado just overhears him and shuts that down fast. Reyna hasn't used fusion at all, even with the clergyman apparently digging into her abilities. Kanata tells her that this is just Riene's true, built-in power, and he says her hidden abilities didn't wake up until her rage over her father losing his mind lit a fire in her. With sweat pouring and rage shaking his bones, the clergyman clutches his staff and swears those insolent brats will pay. Then Kanado steps in calmly, demanding to know what the old man did to get his father to that state, and the clergyman fumes, calling him downright insolent. His threat gets cut off mid-sentence. Riene rockets forward in an instant, and her arm blurs as she smashes the clergyman's head clean off his shoulders. She towers over the fallen clergyman, his body sprawled with his head separated. Then Kanado rushes in, begging her not to execute their captive before they can squeeze out the answers. Reyna stays ice calm and tells him she only struck because that man made a suspicious move. Her eyes don't budge as she snaps, "I didn't kill him, period." To prove her point, the clergyman's severed head jerks into speech, gasping with pure outrage, and Riene smirks as she reveals she used blood magic to stretch his life just long enough. Now he can talk, so they'd better use every second wisely. Kanado corners the clergyman and presses him, "So your whole plan is to resurrect the evil god you already crushed." Then he shrugs it off as just some fantasy. But the clergyman's face snaps with rage and he explodes, screaming that there's nothing dreamlike about it, it's sheer nonsense to say otherwise. He slams his fist and insists the revival of their Lord Evil God isn't some fantasy, it's coming fast, and his organization has been clawing for this moment. He keeps talking and now it's terrifying. He reveals how they scraped up the final scraps of the evil god's blood, then shoved it into a bunch of different organisms. He keeps talking and now it's terrifying. He reveals how they scraped up the final scrap. Hearing it, Reyna's face tightens with pure fury, because the horror hits her in one brutal flash. Her father wasn't just used in that twisted experiment, he was turned into a noble sacrifice. The clergyman's grin turns sick with malice as he nods, confirming her worst fear, and announces that every test subject is doomed to become his lord's nourishment. He lays the plan out in full, offering the amplified power hiding inside the test subjects, right down to their flesh and blood, to their god, then snaps his focus to Riene, calling her the sinful daughter who killed their deity and demanding to know if she finally understands what that means. With fanatical joy, he declares that their god will roar back to life with power so much stronger than what she had when she first crushed him. Yet Reyna doesn't flinch. She coldly says her father was simply unlucky. Her face twists into pure rage as she glares at the clergyman's severed, floating head, spewing bastard through clenched teeth, horrified that her father's whole life was grown only to be a proud sacrifice to his lord, evil guy. While Kanato swallows her anger, she stays cool, eyes sharp on everything. Then he leans towards Sissel and Reyna, pointing out how that old man won't shut up, but somehow, annoying as he is, his rambling has actually been a lifesaver. A dry chuckle rips through the clergyman's mind as he scoffs that their plan is useless. There's nothing they can do to stop God's resurrection. He snarls that their deaths are inevitable because nobody walks out of this place alive. Like his words yank the world by the throat, the ground behind them starts to roil and boil. Then a monstrous, shapeless tide of dark sludge and twitching guts rockets up, looming over their heads. The grotesque thing surges up, gulping down the corpses of monsters and humans littering the floor, and Sissel's eyes widen as she realizes what it is. This is desperate magic, hoovering up flesh and blood to fuse everything into one terrifying body. The clergyman's head pops up with manic joy, confirming her suspicions. He triggered the spell moments before they decapitated him. Then he cackles that everything in here will fuse into one choking mass of flesh, all to feed his lord, the evil god. With that chilling declaration, the monstrous amalgam lunges at the group like a rolling nightmare, corruption crashing in, hungry to swallow them, and the clergyman howls alongside it, yelling that they're next to be taken too. Kanado snaps into action with a smug smirk, brushing the creature off like it's way too slow to touch him. Then he drives a brutal kick, blasting the clergyman's head soaring into the distance. Then he whips around and fires a dazzling burst of destructive energy from his palm, smashing straight into the flesh amalgam and blasting it apart until it explodes into dust. With the danger gone, he slowly clicks the pieces of the man's plan into place. Turns out that endless rant was just a trick to buy time while the amalgam spread. Since there's nothing left to learn, he gives the old man one last, icy goodbye and walks away. He spins away from the dissolving clergyman as the last curse drips from his mouth, and without so much as a glance back, Kanado snaps to his dragon, Lala, burn them all, torch the whole facility with them. The clergyman's sermon gets snatched away by one last, gut-wrenching scream, then a violent burst of fire swallows him whole. Flames explode into a monstrous blast, ripping the ground apart and hurling chunks of debris screaming into the sky. When the smoke finally thins, all that's left is a gutted, smoldering crater where the facility used to stand. Staring at the wreckage, Raina spits out that she'd wanted to kill the clergyman herself. Cecil throws out an apology for how fast it ended, then hits her with the truth. More targets still need revenge, and then Raina can't help but wonder who in their right mind would try to bring back the evil god after everything they suffered just to crush it. Kanado's face twists the second the topic hits, and beside him, rain matches the mood, whole thing's pure misery. He clenches his fist and steel floods his resolve. The evil god got this far, and I'm finishing it. The thought snaps into place in his head. If he can beat it, he'll get closer to Cecil. Raina whips her gaze to him, stunned by the sudden conviction, and asks, "Are you sure?" With all three perched on the cliff's edge, staring out over the world, Kanado lets his mind race, because the guy who used to be at rock bottom now has the power to stare down a god. In a tiny bowl, he crushes herbs with a pestle, grinding them into a thick, powerful poultice. With the mixture finally ready, the young woman smears it across her companion's arm. He yelps that the herbs burn and sting, but she snaps back that she has to get it on fast if she wants those wounds to heal, because they're sleeping outside again tonight. Her companion Norsher grimaces in pain and snaps in frustration, muttering that this jagged ground is brutal on their wounded bodies. He can only wish they had a healer, or at least the money to park at the safe edge for a while. His companion chimes in with fresh dread, face twisted as she blurts out the truth. There's no coin for an inn, and even if they tried to earn their way off the street with the guild, the one who can heal is still petrified. The thought of earning money drags a grim flashback into Norshi's head, getting violently tossed out by two men, and knowing they'll just swing back again, piling on even more bruises. As that memory slips away, his companion fires off a worried question about his injuries, and Norshi's frustration detonates. He screams that Arga destroyed everything and lays blame on the real villains, the ones hunting them. Then from the tall grass nearby, a shadowy figure watches in silence. His shout gets strangled midair when a sudden blur strikes. A tiny, snake-like monster with a dragon-shaped head rockets out and coils around his arm, shocking him and his companion to the core. The creature cinches down hard on his wrist, locking in with an unshakable grip. Right before he can react again, a fresh voice slices through the tension. Sissel, a young woman rising from the grass, steps up and calmly promises she'll heal every single wound between them, and Norsher is left reeling as he blurts out, "Who are you?" What? She doesn't give her name, just flashes a smile that looks swallowed by shadows, and it chills you to the bone. In this quiet little town, Kanado and Rine sit across from each other at a tiny outdoor table, sipping their drinks and catching a much-needed breather. A torrent of shimmering beams fills the sky, and she can't help it. Her eyes clamp shut as pure bliss spreads across her face. Her smile practically dares Kanado to ask, so he does, and she lights up at once, saying, "Of course I'm happy, I'm on a date with Lord Arga." Can't auto questions because this suddenly turns into a date, and a flustered Reina insists it counts, since it's just the two of them. He stays cool and tells her it's only a quick breather before they have to go square off against the evil god, and when the romance gets crushed, Reina snaps at him for killing the vibe, then urges him to rest too. The moment she hears talk of their foe, her excitement crashes. She stares into her cup like it's a mirror, lips parting as evil god echoes in her head, and she finally admits she has no clue what it really means. He meets her hesitation with his own truth, admitting he's clueless too. He doesn't know much about them either. He keeps going, and what he reveals hits like a meteor. The evil gods are rumored to come from outer space, and if we're not ready, they could wipe out entire planets. Realizing how deadly this is, he figures they've got one shot. If that thing is coming back to life, they have to crush it right now. Then he murmurs a sincere, quiet apology. Reina's smile fades as the weight of it all hits her. Her hunt for her father's vengeance has detonated into a battle so massive it's swallowed everything. Kanata tells her no apology ever, then hits her with the real reason. Thanks to her, they learned the evil god was reviving, and that fits his plan perfectly. Next, he leans in and asks, "So tell me, do you know just how rare it is for anyone to actually beat an evil god?" What? He breaks it down like a bombshell. Out of everyone in this world, only two people have ever managed to defeat an evil god, Sissel and a mysterious person called Lukumi Milk Tea. Riene's eyes widen as the name clicks in her mind. Lukumi is a tamer just like her, and she's the very first and strongest SSS-ranked tamer ever recorded, the ultimate goal every person on this path is chasing. A confident grin snaps onto Kanado's face as he boasts that if he crushes the evil god, he'll finally stand shoulder to shoulder with those two legends, putting him one step from becoming the strongest. She gazes up at him, her face melting with gratitude for the chance he's given her, then her mind snaps back to the legendary tamer. She starts wondering out loud what kind of person Lakomi really is. He leans back and admits he's never laid eyes on her, and even Sissel swears she's never met the legendary tamer. Reina can't help but marvel at how mysterious Lakomi feels. Kanado presses on, talking about wild rumors that she went hunting the legendary monster Baltzert, but he shuts it down fast, calling it unverified speculation. He gives them a spark of hope: keep getting stronger, and maybe you'll reach her one day, the same way you finally found Sissel. Their talk screeches to a halt when a thought hits them. Rana realizes Sissel still hasn't returned, and she can't help but figure it's probably just too soon. Up on a hill above the town, a hooded shadow lurks in the trees, eyes locked on everything below. Then he sneers at the thought of taking his time just to grab souvenirs. He raises a tiny vial to his lips with a nasty sneer, mocking how carefree they're being, while he watches the strongest woman stroll out shopping, and the other two just sink into tea like the date's already over, and he grins because this relaxed moment is the perfect opening for his side to snatch victory. His eyes narrowed with ruthless purpose. This is the only way they'll never wring out enough time to revive his lord, the evil god. He sat there thinking, they don't know where my lord is yet, but they will, and his plan was razor simple: drag that evil god far away while they're asleep so they can't stop the revival. He lifted the vile thing he'd been clutching and said, dead certain, once the revival was finished, victory was theirs. Suddenly he froze cold, straight from across the clearing. Kanado's eyes locked onto him like a spotlight, and panic ripped through the hooded man as he spiraled, wondering if the jig was up. But Kanado's focus snapped away. He caught a familiar aura coming from somewhere else, and the moment it hit him, he knew for sure Sissel was back. Shaken by that premonition, the hooded man spun around and froze, staring in disbelief. Right behind him on the path stood Sissel Lu Sergel. He just froze there, totally stunned, and blurted out, "Why are you here?" But Sissel only grinned and waved back with a bright, cheerful greeting. She said it's easy to spot the evil god cult, because they all reek of evil god blood, and then she turned to the little creature she was holding and asked if Lulu could sense it too, since it carried evil god lineage as well. The hooded man's face crumpled, sweat pouring as his eyes went wide with pure dread. His eyes snapped past her to the horizon, where scorching plumes of smoke clawed into the sky, and he blurted, stunned, "No way." Sissel finally got his answer. Every last research facility he had left was gone, wiped out. She said they sniffed out the evil gods with their power, hunted down his bases, and hit them so fast he didn't even get a chance to realize what was happening. Her face turned stone cold. She almost never snaps, but right now fury burned in her eyes, and she swore they'd never, ever bring an evil god back to life. A hooded man glares at Sizzle, contempt and irritation twisting across his face, and then he mutters about what should be done to her for failing to spot his moves, like he's daring Reina to decide Sizzle's fate. Right before he can move, a tiny dark sphere streaks past him, then wham, an earth-shaking explosion erupts. The shockwave slams him off his feet while Sissel stays totally calm, watching the wreckage unfold. Shaken by that sudden ambush, he clenched his fist in fury, realizing this hit came out of nowhere, so he had no choice but to fall back, regroup, and strike again. But just as he's about to bolt, he stops dead, Sissel standing right in front of him, eyes blown wide like she vanished out of nowhere. But his shock doesn't last. Boom, he gets struck down and crumples to the ground, drowning in his own blood, while Sissel looms over him, untouched and totally unscathed. With the danger cut down, she whips around to greet Kanado and Rebecca, who just burst in. She announces her comeback like it's nothing, then tells the guy on the ground his hopes were naive, because escape was never on the table. She flashes a bright peace sign, grins, and drops the biggest bombshell of her life. She's found where the evil god is hiding. Meanwhile, in a nearby clearing, Norsher and the ponytail-wearing adventurer throw their hands up and celebrate, because they're healed right on the spot, and they can't stop marveling as they grin and play along with the fact that they can't see who saved them. But their cloaked companion isn't sharing the excitement. Her face turns grim as she whispers, "The more I hear, the worse this gets." Her words set Northshire off. He snaps that he has to know if it was Arga who did it, raging that it's horrible to drag his old comrades into that kind of fury. The ponytail girl nods hard, shouting that he better finally understand why they're so angry. As the tension kept rising, the cloaked woman's face finally snapped into view, half swallowed by shadow, eyes burning, and she stepped straight into Norshi's group, offering them a shocking deal. If they wanted revenge, she'd help them get it. She laid out her side and admitted she's a tamer too, so how could she ever forgive someone like Arga? The word revenge slammed through Norshi's mind, and his face instantly twisted into pure, stunned confusion. He demanded to know her name, and she answered by reaching out, promising that she'd power him up through fusion, while revealing she could use fusion techniques too. With a fearless grin, she yanked back her hood and the world got a face reveal. Then she cradled a tiny three-eyed creature in her arms and said, "I'm Lukumi Milktia." The squad shows up ahead of a towering cylindrical stone monster, the first labyrinth, and Riene confirms it's exactly where the evil god is rumored to be lurking. She's dead certain, she swears she's heard the same thing echoed by multiple cult members, backing up every claim. She lays out their plan: hide the target inside an SSS-rank labyrinth so brutal and terrifying that hardly anyone even dares to step in, and discovery becomes a nightmare for their enemies. Then the three adventurers stride through the grand archway and dive straight into the dungeon. As they push forward, Riene blurts out a shaky apology ahead of time, just in case her info turns out wrong, but Kanata waves it off. Either way, you're good. And while they don't notice, something huge lurks in the shadows ahead, glowing eyes burning, fangs bared, a monstrous beast waiting to strike. A saber-toothed nightmare rockets out of the dark, jaws bared, claws blazing as it roars and slams down on Kanato. In a blink, the danger gets shut down. This beast crumples to the stone floor, its head smashed in. Kanato just nods like it's nothing, saying even if that tip was a lie, the place is still packed with rare treasures. He and the others keep pushing until they hit a fork, two arch paths that look exactly the same, and the second Reina spots the split. She blurts out that they should split up right there to grab more ground. She strides down the corridor, waving and declaring her pick, then promises, "If I hit a dead end, I'll just spin around and follow your route instead." Kanato nods like, "Yeah, same for us." Reina shoots Sissel a quick worry, "Are you really okay on your own?" And Kanato waves it off, dead sure Sissel can handle herself, warning her to stay sharp and watch for traps, which Sissel quietly nods to. And as she heads out with her familiars, she keeps her eyes on the bigger picture, wondering what the cult is really planning. Right when they're about to split apart, Riene suddenly freezes, her face flips into total shock. Kanato swings around, shouting, "What's wrong?" She can barely get words out because a terrifying realization hits her like a punch. Riene's thoughts ditched the conversation in a heartbeat, her cheeks flamed red. She clasped her hands, only to realize they were alone, and a wild idea hit her. Was this almost a date? Did Sissel deliberately leave first for them? Her love-struck fantasy got yanked to a stop the second Kanato barked, back into the shadows. Startled out of her wits, she blurted an apology on the spot and swore she'd shut her mouth as she slipped away. Meanwhile, Sissel, after taking the other path, ran straight into a wall that cut her off completely, and she muttered that it was a dead end until a sharp flicker of realization hit, freezing her mid-step as she stared into the darkness. From the blackness, brutal guttural snarls ripped through the air as monstrous, fanged mouths yawned open. Her face tightened the second she recognized him. Then the evil god's blood hit her senses, and a grim certainty slammed into her. These weren't just monsters. Two grotesque figures burst out of the shadows, human-like and massively built on top, but below they twisted and churned with pale, writhing tendrils that whipped like living hair. A creature with glasses stepped up and spoke to her, guessing she was still alive because the evil god's blood had been forced into her, and then straight up asking if she belonged to the evil god cult's research crew. Sissel's eyes widened just a little at the blunt charge. She snapped back, eyes blazing, demanding if they weren't the real villains for trying to wipe the world clean. Then the creature screamed in rage, furious that she'd slaughtered its comrades With a hate-soaked scream telling her to die, the monster surged forward, and in the same instant, Sissel yanked her hand to her blade's hilt, eyes locked and grim, ready to fight. Its fluid body exploded forward, hurling a storm of razor-sharp tendrils straight at her. She rockets into the air with her sword clenched tight, just as those two tendril-wielding monsters crash toward her from both sides. Her blade lands perfectly, and the creature's strange, flowing shapes convulse and twist violently from the hit. As the monster's dissolving remains swirl away, one head pops out, gurgling a curse, and Sissel freezes, because right under it, a glowing sigil suddenly ignites on the ground and traps the creature. The sigil detonates in a blast of smoke, and when the haze finally clears, the monsters are gone, wiped out so completely their bodies just melt into nothing. She stands alone in the wreckage, staring at the empty space where her attackers were moments ago, as the smoke finally thins around her. Her face twists into pure confusion and uneasy dread as her mind scrambles to make sense of what just happened. Meanwhile, deep inside the labyrinth, Kanato leans in and warns Riene to move like trouble's right around the corner, because the path to the evil god's chamber has to be close. Then just as they press forward, a voice snaps out his alias, Arga is. His eyes snap wide and recognition hits like a blade. He whips around just in time to see Nymer casually wave at him, and Reyna instantly clocks the man as the one who exiled Lord Arga. Kanado snaps, asking why Nymer's here, and Nymer smirks. He says he heard Kanado was coming, so he's been waiting. Then he leans in with total confidence and tells Kanado he should already know what this meeting is really about. With a calm, almost cheerful smile, Nymer leans in and declares, plain as day, that he's going to kill Kanado, the one he can't stand. Riene slides between Kanado and their new enemy, snaps wait, then clocks the man as a threat and declares, loud and confident, that she'll take it from here. As Nymer braces to move, she studies the moment without a flicker of emotion, and her mind starts screaming. How did Kanado, who got dropped to E rank, even get into an SSS rank lab, and where the hell is Sans? Still, Kanado stands there unshaken, like everything's fine, and that detail just doesn't make sense. Kanado yanks Riene back and demands they watch their opponent first, and Riene snaps back that he looks weak and there's no reason to be cautious. But Kanado cuts her off hard, shouting that there's absolutely no way. Rage tearing through him, he snaps at Riene, swearing he can't stand one more second of their alone time getting interrupted. Reyna takes that moment as her signal and rockets forward in a blur, only for Nymer to snap her fist out of the way with effortless ease, the shock slamming them both into a low, ready stance. She darts her eyes to the hand he's got trapped, blinking like she's shocked for a second, then snaps her gaze up with a smug little smirk and scoffs that his strength is nothing, just like she'd figured. When Nimrez gets hit with that taunt, she casually whips Nimrez's opponent backward through the air. Then Nimrez lets out this low, sinister chuckle as Kanado screams her name in panic. He braces himself with his arms stretched wide, and from his back, two twisted, discolored, monstrous arms burst out and clamp down to pin his own arms in place. Then he taunts Arga, asking if he's really keeping a monster that can't obey orders, while Kanado freezes in pure horror at the transformation, and a strange voice confirms that this is the Riene Nymer swears she's been seeing. The mystery behind those extra limbs clicks into place. There's a young girl with pigtails and a Raton clinging to Nimmer's back, her arms locked around his torso, and with a wicked grin she tells him it's just as dumb as the one he ever tamed. Nymer's laughs crack through the air at the twisted look on Arga's face, while Kanado's mind barrels forward, thinking of Sans, as Raton snaps that she'll punish this monster in Arga's stead, and Nymer just grins and tells her, go on. She let out a ferocious roar at the vampire on the ground, ripping into it until it obeyed its master's orders. Right before she could finish, a black-clad figure streaked across the ground, and with a brutal, thunderous kick, Kanado slammed Nemaris, sending both him and the parasitic Raton flying away from Rena. He snapped his focus to the fallen vampire princess, shouting her name like his life depended on it, begging her to wake up. Then Riene stirred on the ground, a shaky little laugh slipping out as the dust and rubble finally settled. His plea got cut off when a booming laugh rolled in from behind. Nymer's swayed like he'd been fine the whole time, clutching his chest and insisting the attack hurt absolutely nothing, while Raton sat on his back and chimed in that they'd gotten stronger. He stared in disbelief, cold sweat pouring down his brow, and Kanado blurted out whether the evil god cult had messed with them. So Nymer and Raton shot back a confused look, until Nymer explained that the one who did all this was a gentle tamer. His face twisted into a vicious smirk as he leaned in, bragging about a legendary tamer, someone even stronger than Kanado, and then he dropped the bomb. Lakumi milk tea, and the name hit the air like a slap, freezing Kanado in total shock. Inside the guild hall, the receptionist explodes into motion, fist clenched, shouting that she's just laid eyes on an incredible person, Lakumi. The moment she says it, every adventurer around her goes, wait, are you sure? Because one guy doubts her, another scoffs that nobody's seen Lakumi in years, and a third man spells out just how serious this is. Lakumi, the legendary SSS rank tamer. Then the receptionist steps in, deadly certain, insisting she knows her by name and saw her herself standing right at the edge of town. She doubles her confidence and spills a personal truth. Back when she was a menace, she actually got knocked out by Lakumi, so now she's dead sure there's no way she's wrong. That confession hits the adventurers like a punch, especially when Ansa turns, asking what's going on, and Nymer's eyes snap wide as she blurts Lukumi's name. The receptionist panics and begs him, in shaky breaths, to not dig into her wild past. It hits him all at once, the words Kanado and his crew tossed his way earlier. Lukumi is with us. He and Raton lock eyes with grim determination, and Nemura's voice rings out that these new allies will forge them into something stronger, strong enough to finally hunt Arga down. Then Raton flashes a wicked grin and says, don't worry, Arga's next. Back at the guild, the arguments keep raging and the subholders demand answers. Why would Lakumi, the girl who's famous for tackling everything solo, suddenly team up with inferiors? The receptionist even tries to confirm if she really saw Lakumi alone. Then another adventurer turns to Nemura and asks how Lakumi could make them stronger, and Nemura just snaps, he has no clue. Elsewhere in a barren rocky wasteland, Kanado faces off against Nemurus, while the vampire Riene lies fast asleep nearby, so still that it feels unreal, and in the distance, a single spire-like tower pierces the sky from inside a circular fortress. The memory of their last chat is razor-sharp. Lukumi, smiling like she already knows the outcome, tells a stunned Naimura that she confused too, while Kanado, sweating, panicking, can only choke out Lukumi's name in pure disbelief. This fear totally earned. Naimura and Rattan, faces now carved with eerie markings, break into wild, manic grins and shout in sync that they've been reborn and forged into something stronger by fusion. The fused warrior taunts Kanado, savoring the shock and dread crawling across his face, then snaps forward with a manic grin, roaring for Kanado to give him even more of that expression as he barrels in. Kanado and his other half slam into a furious, perfectly timed assault. Nimura's punch drives him on the defensive while Ratton's wild swing whips past, and the second Ratton cackles, Kanado's scrambling just to survive as their combined hits hammer him non-stop. The barrage slams Kanado into action. He snaps his head back and shouts, pivots hard, and drives a kick into a loose rock, launching it like a bullet straight for Nimmer's head. It smacks him with a brutal crunch, blasting right into his eyes. Staggering after the punch, the fuse clamps a hand to his face, while Kanado stands in the distance with a tight, tense look, staring hard at what he just did. A low chuckle slips past the warrior's lips, then he yanks his hand back in there where I stood, sits a mangled, smoking wreck, and he grins wide like it's hilarious, asking if Kanado really thought he'd managed to end me. His flesh in that eye socket boils and snaps back together at a sickeningly impossible speed, and he smirks. Then he grins and tells everyone any wound now regenerates instantly, claiming it's yet another gift from Lakumi. With his eye finally back in place, he throws his arms wide and soaks up the win, then brags that after fusing with a whole lineup of monsters, they've gained bodies that can't be defeated by Kanado. He leans in and fires off a question to Kanado. What does it feel like to face them now? Does fear hit him? Does despair crawl in? But Kanado just stays calm and flat out says he feels none of it, not when their power is right there. His calm denial snaps the fused warrior out of his stride, right when Kanado's eyes turn razor-sharp. Then Kanado blurts the truth he's been terrified to admit, how hopeless and idiotic they are. He leans in, dares them to answer, and asks if their run-in with Lakumi was just luck or fate playing dirty. And with no mercy left, he declares it outright. The one they met wasn't real, he was an imposter. He jacks up his voice, roaring his conclusion like it's carved in stone. Those people who handed them their power had to be tied to the evil god cult, and for reasons he can't fully grasp yet, the cult then slid in close, grabbed control, and bent them to their will. He kept spilling the cult's playbook, saying they had to dress up as a famous warrior just to earn trust, because if they'd ever shown their real face as an evil god cult, even Naimura and Rattan would have been right where he stood. He warned them what they were fusing with wasn't just a monster, it was an evil god type, soaked in its blood, and it would slowly strip them of their humanity piece by piece. The horrifying truth hit Naimura like a punch, and he ripped out a guttural scream as his body erupted into violent mutations, his arms stretching into twisted, unnatural appendages. As Kanado watched the change unfold, his face stayed ice-cold and merciless, because to him it was nothing but their same old pattern, always pointing fingers, judging everyone, and grabbing whatever was easiest. And when it was over, he finally declared it a perfect ending for creatures he considered truly ugly. Before the fused pair finished their grotesque transformation into one twisted creature, his thoughts burst into reality right in front of him, and he blurted out that it wasn't only their hearts that looked ruined, now their bodies mirrored their intercorruption. Seething at the insult, Nimmer's head roared back like it had a mind of its own, but Kanado didn't even flinch, snapping back that sure, they'd gotten stronger, yet the upgrading quality still didn't erase the truth. Trash was still trash. The creature tore forward in a rage-fueled lunge, and Kanado snapped into a defensive stance, ready to settle this mess in their monstrous forms, and he dodged just in time as the attack crashed into the ground. He snapped forward in an instant and drove a fist wrapped in dark energy straight into the creature's torso, crashing through its twisted body and blasting a shockwave that made both heads scream in unbearable agony. The punch hit way harder than their unstable fusion could survive, and the moment the creature started ripping apart, the Raton head shrieked his name in one last desperate burst, our god. With one final, decisive swing, he landed the blow, and the monster shattered apart while Raton's severed torso crashed to the ground, its pieces scattering everywhere. He stared as the wrecked body of his opponent refused to give up, while the Nimmer, tangled in that creature's snarling grip, fought through a cracked, strained voice, swearing it wouldn't die and would just regenerate. Spurred on by that boast, he stayed ice calm, snapped his fingers, and shouted, "Come out, Lulu." A tiny orb-like Shaggoth rocketed into view and blasted its skill-crushed hope asterisk, then slammed straight into the fused monster like a cannonball. The blow slammed into the creature's chest. Nymra laughed it off at first, calling it nothing but a flesh wound because he knew he could heal. But that confidence snapped in an instant, and pure shock hit him hard when he finally realized the truth. This wasn't healing, this was something far worse. With a calm voice, he broke down his familiar's true nature. Lulu isn't just any monster, it's an evil god-type beast, and its attacks throw out waves that shut down regeneration in anything like it. Then he remembered Riene's father, who could normally heal, until Lulu's mental assault pinned him down and left him unable to recover. As the fused creature tore open in horror, it could only shriek in agony and pure disbelief while the wound festered, refusing to seal. The aftermath was brutal. Its body shattered, then dissolved into dark motes of energy, and as terror hit, Nemr gasped, "My body is crumbling." With one last silent snap, the countless parts of her body finally crumbled to nothing, and the awful force tore her upper torso out, still clinging to a chunk of that monstrous flesh, sending it flying through the air as she screamed his name in one last, desperate burst. Rage blazing in her chest, she barreled straight at him, then twisted midair, her face twisted with hatred as she roared, "I'll kill you." But just as she was about to reach her target, a sharp, commanding voice sliced through the air. "Hey." Suddenly, Rienal Arilsha burst into existence between them, spectral blades flaring in a tight ring, and she stopped Ratan's desperate lunge dead, just inches from the mark, while the disembodied thing froze in stunned silence. The vampire princess snapped a predatory grin onto the helpless Ratan and hissed, "You really did it earlier," her voice dripping with menace as she brought up his past mistake, leaving him staring at her in pure, shaking terror. She snaps into action without a second thought, slinging a brutal storm of blades that drives straight into her tiny opponent, and Nemura, still fused to her, howls in pure agony. His voice shatters with regret as he screams Arga's name, praying he had never been there, while Kanado can only stand frozen, stunned by the sudden, ruthless strike. Right after the fatal blow hit, Nimmerus' body started to dissolve into a bubbling pool of liquid. Then, with his final breath, he spat a deadly curse at his enemies and rasped Argo's name one last time as his voice finally died out. As the fuse burns out, Sissel charges onto the scene, yelling Arga's name in panic. Then Kanado snaps his head toward her voice, still frozen in pure shock. That cursed pool churned with a monster one last time, bubbling like it couldn't breathe. Then it suddenly went still, leaving nothing behind but silence and the feeling it was never there. Sissel slams to a stop next to Kanado and Reina, staring at the wreckage, and murmurs that this disaster looks exactly like the last one. Her sharp comment jolts Kanado into asking what's going on, and he admits he doesn't fully get it, while Sissel, eyes locked on a distant figure perched on a mound of rubble, answers with a grim certainty, "It's all for the evil god." Kanado's eyes snap to the woman, and when he realizes she's the fake Lakomi, he immediately fires back, demanding to know why she dragged him and the others into her scheme. She just smiles, calm as ever, and says she picked those exact people because they all hated him with a burning, buried fury. With a cruel grin, she spells it out. The more hatred they swallow, the stronger the evil god gets. Then she shrugs off the adventurers, lives like they're just food to turbocharge her deity. Sissel finally snaps the horrifying plan into place. The woman turns the people who hate Kanado against the cultists who hate Sissel, and the imposter backs it up. Right as hatred erupts at death, it transforms into the absolute best fuel. Now that her plan's out in the open, she throws her arms wide and power rips into the earth, cracking it to pieces. Then she grins and screams that the evil god's resurrection is finally here, and it's already swallowed up terrifying new strength. She grins like she's lost her mind as she tells Kanado, right to his face, to enjoy the nightmare, while his eyes lock on hers and his expression hardens into grim resolve.